Chapter 4575. Smack. Before the Mahavairocana revered Buddha could finish his words, Xueqi waved his magic wand and hit Xueqi's head. Under the magic wand, this Xueqi couldn't move. He was glaring at the Mahavairocana revered Buddha, but he didn't expect Xueqi to suddenly attack. He didn't have the strength to fight back at all. Seeing the magic wand coming at him like a huge mountain, this Xueqi's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. In the blink of an eye, thousands of lights and shadows flashed before his eyes. There were humans and monsters that he had eaten alive, humans that he had burned to death with his flames, and even monsters that he had killed with his magic wand. In the end, all the lights and shadows converged to form Xiao Hua's figure, an indomitable giant that stood between the heavens and the earth. Xueqi cried out mournfully, "Master." His tone was filled with reluctance, unwillingness, awakening, and regret. However, all of his emotions were turned into nothingness under the magic wand. This Xueqi didn't even have the time to scream. His brain exploded, and he died in front of the rank 9 Buddhist lotus. Following that, a primordial spirit flew out from Xueqi's body. Xueqi's eyes were sharp, and he waved his magic wand again. The Mahavairocana revered Buddha cried out in alarm. He raised his hand and imprisoned Xueqi. He said angrily, Amitabha. Xueqi, how can you kill without permission? Revered one. Xueqi giggled. This fake disturbed the sutra-seeking extreme bliss and wanted to take away my merits. How can I let him go? Moreover, since he dared to be so arrogant in front of the revered one, he must have something to rely on. If I don't kill him, won't I be destroying the prestige of Buddhism? Revered one, did you not hear me? This fake even called me master before he died. This so-called master must be the mastermind behind all this. A rare trace of anger appeared in the Mahavairocana revered Buddha's eyes. He stared at Xueqi for a few breaths of time before he said dejectedly, Amitabha. Xueqi, your killing intent is too strong. Although you have contributed greatly by escorting Xuanzang, you have also broken many rules. I hope that this is the last time you break the precepts. In the future, you have to take this as a warning and cultivate properly. Otherwise, the sutra praying in nirvana will be for naught in the end. As the Mahavairocana World Venerable finished his words, thunderous roars sounded around the Thunder Temple. Many places in the Thunder Temple collapsed, showing signs of decline. Countless Buddhist kingdoms were rapidly annihilated, and countless men and women were wailing in pain in the annihilation. Furthermore, the Buddhist light around the Mahavairocana World Venerable and the entire Thunder Temple was also declining. Billions of heavenly flowers fell from the void of the Thunder Temple. As they fell, they withered and turned into dust. Master. When Xueqi saw the change in the Thunder Sound Temple, he couldn't help but be shocked. When his gaze landed on the Mahavairocana revered Buddha, he was even more shocked. He couldn't help but cry out, Amitabha, the revered Buddha is, see. When Xueqi saw the change, so did the 10,000 Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Shocked voices sounded from all over the Thunder Sound Temple. Amitabha, excellent, excellent. Half of the Vairocana Buddha golden body that was previously radiating light rapidly withered as the Buddha's light faded. In just a moment, it had turned into a withered grayish-black color. Although there was still some Buddha's light flowing on it, the Buddha's light was also mixed with a grayish-black color. Even in the light condensed from the power of faith behind the Mahavairocana World Venerable's head, half of the light turned pitch black. Namo Amitabha. Namo Daxing Samantabhadra Bodhisattva stood before the Buddhist lotus and couldn't help but put his palms together. Revered Buddha, what's going on? My Buddha. Is there a tribulation? Amitabha, tribulation is precepts. Precepts are also desires. Desires can be fate, and fate can be the result. The benevolence on the Mahavairocana World Venerable's face didn't change. Then he said to Xueqi, Xueqi, do you understand? Amitabha. Xueqi threw away his devil wand and knelt before the 9 grades Buddhist lotus. He said respectfully, I'll remember your words, revered Buddha. From today onwards, I won't commit any more murders. I'll do my best to escort Xuanzang back to the Longevity Town and erect the golden body of the Namo Amitabha Bodhisattva on the River Tide Ridge. Go. The Mahavairocana World Venerable flicked his sleeves and said, Thank you, revered Buddha. I'll take my leave now. Xueqi bowed. After he stood up, He stared at the Mahavairocana world venerable's withering glory golden body for a while. Then, he lowered his head and left. The guardian heavenly king brought him back to the East Sea. For a moment, the 10,000 Buddhas looked at the withered golden body of the Mahavairocana world venerable and didn't know what to say. Senior apprentice brother. The Mahavairocana world venerable asked in a low voice, "Am I wrong?" Amitba, there's no wrong, and there's no right. There's no right or wrong in this world. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world venerable chanted, Zhen Kong is wrong for being too cruel. What's wrong is, the timing of the Nirvana scripture praying was wrong. Namo Maitreya Buddha. At this moment, beside the Mahavairocana world venerable, the Maitreya Buddha world venerable's golden body appeared from the void. Other than benevolence, there was also a hint of anger on his face. World venerable, I think you're wrong. Amitba, what wrong have I done? The Mahavairocana world venerable raised his head. He didn't look at the Mahavairocana world venerable. Instead, he glanced at the 10,000 Buddhas and asked in a low voice. The world venerable's Buddhist mantras are well versed in the heavens and the earth. You're the number one person in our Buddhism. The Mahavairocana world venerable glanced at the 10,000 Buddhas and said, in this world, when it comes to seeing through the mundane world and karma, I'm afraid no other Buddhas would dare to compare with the world venerable. However, even if the world venerable has reached the golden body multiple transformations and is close to the limit, he's still a distance away from attaining the Buddha fruit. Moreover, according to my opinion, even if one's Buddha position is eternally solidified and attains the 9 transformations golden body, one would only be the lord of a region and the ruler of a world. Following the heavens and earth, reincarnation, and myriad eras, it still can't be compared. The so-called karma is the long river of time and space. Any cause may seem small, but the effect it causes is subtle. No one can forcefully disturb karma, not even my Buddha. The world venerable saw that the karma of this world had already been formed, yet he still had distracting thoughts and wanted to interfere with karma. Isn't that wrong? Amitba. The Mahavairocana world venerable chanted but didn't answer. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Since the creation of the world venerable Buddhism sect, countless Buddhas have been diligently pursuing the truth of Buddhism for countless years. The Mahavairocana world venerable continued. However, our Buddhism sect is now divided into 10 sects, namely the Attainment sect, the Possession sect, the Nature sect, the Harmony sect, the Tiantai sect, the Virtuous Head sect, the Zen sect, the Pure Land sect, the Vinaya sect, and the Tantra sect. Other than these 10 sects, there are countless smaller branches. Is their Buddhism sect the same as our Buddhism truth? In this disciple's opinion, not necessarily. This disciple thinks that our Buddhism sect's disciples are now burdened by their physical bodies. They have abandoned everything in their physical bodies and don't want to farm or fish. They only rely on offerings. If we Buddhas are pure of heart and few desires, it's fine. We can make a living with simple tea and plain food. However, there aren't many Buddhas who are pure of heart. This inevitably leads to misunderstandings. This is also the fatal point of the Confucian cultivators attacking our Buddhism sect. The so-called vermin is nothing more than this. This disciple has seen the Buddhas in the hidden immortal continent where a Buddhism sect was established. They supported themselves and didn't need to solicit alms. Similarly, they could use the property of the temple to support the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. They really did achieve widows, and loneliness. Then, Namo Maitreya Buddha spoke of his thoughts and his recent enlightenment. There was no lack of inconsistencies with the Pure Land world. Amitba. Junior apprentice brother. What do you mean by this? The Mahavairocana Buddha Lord listened quietly. In the end, the Buddhas were stunned and asked again. The mistake of the Buddha Lord has already been made. Moreover, the impact is severe. The Mahavairocana Buddha Lord's gaze showed no fear. He looked at the Mahavairocana Buddha Lord and said, this disciple feels that this mistake is detrimental to the development of our Buddhism sect in the Pure Land world. Therefore, I hope that the Mahavairocana Buddha Lord and the Dipankara archaic Buddha Lord will reconsider. Only reconsider? Asked the Mahavairocana Buddha Lord. Our Buddhism sect's words don't lie in words. It doesn't lie in words. Junior apprentice brother has spoken for so long. I already know what he's thinking. Mahavairocana Buddha Lord. The Dipankara archaic Buddha Lord, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. The connection between the Pure Land world and the Buddhism kingdom has been severed for a long time. Not only is the flow of karma blocked, the cycle of reincarnation is also in chaos. Junior Apprentice Brothers' vindication, the birth of the Namo Mahavati Samantabhadra, and the mystery of the Namo Mahavati Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's voice of the world. All of these revealed a trace of chaos in the Buddhism kingdom. Also, the mystery of the true and false chastity is also the tip of the iceberg. With so many entanglements, let alone Junior Apprentice Brother and me, even the Mahavairocana Buddha Lord can't see clearly. Therefore the Lord's judgment. At this point, the Dipankara archaic Buddha Lord stopped. Half a teardrop flowed out of his eyes, and his originally miserable face became even more sorrowful. Whether the Buddha nature is more than the human nature, or whether the human nature is more important than the Buddha nature, our Buddhism sect has never come to a conclusion. This disciple doesn't want to be entangled with the Lord any longer. The Mahavairocana Buddha Lord's expression was calm as water. He said calmly, however, if the Buddha nature is imposed on the human nature, using one's own benefits to overpower the Buddha's benefits, then the Buddha is also a devil. Not only is my Buddha the Mahavairocana Buddha Lord's Buddha, but I'm also the Dipankara archaic Buddha Lord's Buddha and the Mahavairocana Buddha Lord's Buddha. I can't bear to see the Buddhas of the Pure Land world go astray. Junior Apprentice Brother, are you rebelling against the Thunderclap Temple? The Mahavairocana Buddha Lord wasn't surprised at all. He said calmly, Junior Apprentice Brother, don't forget that you've only been in my Thunderclap Temple for a few years. You don't even know the secrets of my Thunderclap Temple. Lord, it doesn't matter if it's a day or a moment. If you don't realize it now, so what if it's 10,000 years? The Thunderclap Temple isn't here, nor is it far away. The Thunderclap Temple is in this disciple's heart. The Mahavairocana Buddha Lord answered. As long as this disciple stays true to his heart, where isn't the Thunderclap Temple? Chapter 4576. Junior Apprentice Brother. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's tears were already dripping down. Through the void, they transformed into countless rivers and flooded countless Buddhist kingdoms. An ancient voice resounded within the Thunder Monastery. Have you decided? Not bad. The Maitreya Buddha nodded firmly. Such a Buddha is not a disciple's Lain temple. Such a Buddhist sect is also not a disciple's Buddhist sect. As the future Lord Buddha, I have to think about the future. Junior Brother, do you think you can walk out of the Thunder Temple? The Dipankara archaic Buddha's World Lord's voice carried a hint of threat. All of a sudden, a commotion broke out within the Thunder Sound Temple. The Maitreya Buddha smiled and raised his hand to slap his forehead. Boom! A Buddhist cloud gushed out with a Buddhist artifact floating in the cloud. 10,000 rays of Buddhist light soared into the sky as thousands of treasures surged. 7 Wonders Tree. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's World Lord was shocked, while the myriad Buddha's expressions changed. Namo Maitreya Buddha. At that moment, 30% of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats bowed in respect. Can I walk out of the Thunder Temple with the help of the Tree of 7 Wonders? The corners of Maitreya Buddha's mouth curled into a smile. Can this disciple use the 7 Wonders Tree to spread the Buddha's light across the 3 continents? Can this disciple use the 7 Wonders Tree to retrieve the distorted Buddha's light? Perhaps. The Dipankara archaic Buddha remained silent. Namo Amitabha. The Mahavairocana world venerated one looked at the wonderful tree of 7 treasures that was overflowing with treasure light. His withered face was also a little stunned, but he said benevolently, Junior Brother, do you still remember the agreement we made that day? Of course I remember. Maitreya Buddha said curiously. Didn't you say that I have a heart tribulation? Disciple has cultivated a Buddhist heart and diligently cleaned the mirror. There was no demonic tribulation that came close to me. Amitabha. The Mahavairocana Buddha shook his head and said, I'm talking about your actions against the Thunder Temple, not your demonic tribulation. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Maitreya Buddha world honored one chanted the name of Buddha. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded and said, I understand. I will never do anything that goes against Lain Temple. However, before the revered one of the world understands, I am not willing to stay in the Lain Temple. I would like to bring a group of bodhisattvas to another place to cultivate. As for when to return to the Lain Temple, that will depend on when the revered one of the world can cultivate his golden body again. As he spoke, The Maitreya Buddha raised his hand and was about to take away Zhen Kong's corpse and the soul entrenched in the Buddhist light. However, his hand moved and he stopped. He coldly looked at the Mahavairocana Revered One and said, "Revered One, this corpse should be left as a warning to the Revered One. Furthermore, this disciple would like to ask the Revered One of the world to properly preserve this corpse and soul so that he can give an account to his master in the future." What? Mahavairocana Revered Buddha was suddenly stunned and asked curiously, "Isn't his master, Namo Maitreya Buddha and Revered One of the world can interfere with karma? Why can't others interfere with reincarnation?" After the Maitreya Buddha finished speaking, he slowly got up. The 9-grade lotus platform below him also moved. The wonderful tree of 7 treasures above his head covered his golden body. A golden crack appeared in front of the Maitreya Buddha's head. The outline of a palace door appeared at the edge of the crack. Namo Maitreya Buddha. At this moment, a Buddhist chant resounded. Namo Maitreya Samantabhadra Bodhisattva moved his lotus platform and said, "This disciple is willing to follow Namo Maitreya Buddha to cultivate outside. Namo Maitreya Buddha, this disciple is also willing to cultivate with you." At this moment, 40% of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and other Buddhas stood up and left their seats. Leaving is staying, and staying is also leaving. Cultivation has always been in the heart. The Maitreya Buddha chanted loudly and stepped into the palace door. "Junior apprentice brother, where do you want to cultivate?" The Dipankara archaic Buddha suddenly asked. "Snowy mountain, small exquisite temple." A voice faintly resounded. Not only did the Maitreya Buddha's figure disappear, but the other Buddhas also disappeared, and the Buddhist lights were extinguished. After a while, the Mahavairocana Revered Buddha's voice resounded again. "All Buddhas, retreat." "Yes, Revered One of the world." It was still the respectful voice of the 10,000 Buddhas. However, this voice was much fainter and weaker, just like the withered heavenly flowers in the Thunder Sound Temple. "Revered Buddha." The Dipankara archaic Buddha's voice resounded amidst the bleakness. "I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I still couldn't figure out why the Maitreya Buddha's Revered Buddha would have a heart tribulation. Previously, I thought that he had recklessly attained enlightenment, causing his foundation to be unstable. However, I didn't expect that the cause was actually Ananda." "Yes, The Mahavairocana Revered Buddha's mouth was filled with bitterness as he answered, "I didn't expect it either." Then, who's Zhen Kong's master? The Dipankara archaic Buddha asked as he looked at Zhen Kong's corpse and soul. The Mahavairocana Revered Buddha answered plainly, "Senior apprentice brother, why do you need me to say it? Don't tell me you don't know?" Sigh, who else could it be other than Taoist Shao, who has no origin and whose karma can't be detected? The Dipankara archaic Buddha sighed and said, "This time Ananda is in trouble. Since the revered Buddha is involved in this karma, he can't just ignore it." Fortunately, the Mahavairocana Revered Buddha nodded slightly and said, "Although the Fortune Gate's disciples have cleansed the heaven and earth board, and the immortal palace's feathers have perished in the soaring Dragon Mountain range, Xiao Hua is only a human Mahayana realm essence Chi mid-stage 9th grade. He's still not enough to threaten my Thunder Sound Temple. Although the Maitreya Buddha has betrayed the Thunder Sound Temple, he still has the Thunder Sound Temple in his heart. Revered Buddha, you can't ignore his words." The Dipankara archaic Buddha advised, "Revered Buddha, you still have to think about how to resolve this sudden karma." "Namo Amitabha. I understand." The Mahavairocana Revered Buddha nodded and raised his finger. A 5-colored crystal flew out from the Buddha lotus and landed on Zhen Kong's soul. The soul struggled unyieldingly for a while before slowly falling into the crystal. Then, it was kept by the Mahavairocana Revered Buddha's lotus platform. As for the corpse, the Mahavairocana Revered Buddha also kept it into his lotus platform after some consideration. Seeing that the Mahavairocana Revered Buddha had already made up his mind, the Dipankara archaic Buddha was originally very calm. However, he suddenly felt a slight change in the Thunder Sound Temple's karmic cycle. He couldn't help but look at the Mahavairocana Revered Buddha in surprise and wanted to ask about it. However, before the Dipankara archaic Buddha could speak, the Mahavairocana Revered Buddha calmly said, "Don't let others know. Silence is golden." Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. A hint of surprise flashed across the Dipankara archaic Buddha's face. He put his palms together and chanted 3 Buddha names in a row. So that's how it is. Namo Amitba's betrayal of the Thunder Sound Temple was something that had never happened in the pure land of ultimate bliss. However, the Thunder Sound Temple remained as silent as ever, as if it hadn't moved at all. When the Mahavairocana revered Buddha forcefully interfered with the karmic cycle and caused the Thunder Sound Temple's Buddha lights to fall, Chunzong, who was sitting cross-legged in a dilapidated thatched cottage by the East Sea, suddenly opened his eyes. Within his clear eyes, an extremely dim Buddha light suddenly appeared. As the Buddha light flashed by, Chunzong closed his eyes as well. However, within Chunzang's Naiwan Palace, boundless Buddha light appeared out of nowhere and illuminated the entire Naiwan Palace. Within the Buddha light, the golden radiance that was previously hidden within Chunzang's Naiwan Palace appeared with a whoosh. Within the golden radiance, the silhouette of another Buddha Lord's golden statue appeared. As soon as this golden statue appeared, it was already 9 feet tall. Moreover, below the 9 feet tall statue was a 9-grade lotus platform. Behind its head, a faint radiance flickered. These were the signs of the Buddha Lord's initial formation. Namo Amitba. Shock appeared on Chunzang's face as he silently chanted Buddha's name in his heart. He sighed inwardly. Could it be that the message left within the golden radiance is real? However, I really don't know what exactly happened in the Thunder Sound Temple. Is this change a blessing or a tragedy? Is it a blessing or a curse? After an unknown period of time, a low voice could be heard outside the thatched cottage. Master, I'm back. Oh. Hearing this familiar voice, Chunzang's face lit up with joy. He hurriedly got up from the ground and walked out of the thatched cottage. Outside the cottage, the sky was bright. Zhen Kong was still standing arrogantly in the distance. However, at this moment, there was an additional layer of joy on his face from surviving a calamity. In front of him, Zhan Jie frowned and sized up Zhen Kong. He didn't allow him to approach the thatched cottage. After Zhan Jie left, Dragon Horse Zhen Feng and Zhen Han also hid far away, secretly on guard. Tai Bai Jinxing and the other people from the Immortal Palace were long gone. Clearly, they had already left when the Thunder Sound Temple's guardian king sent Zhen Kong back. Zhen Kong, what happened in the Thunder Sound Temple? Chunzong was somewhat anxious. He took a few steps forward and asked. Zhen Jie raised his hand and blocked Chunzong. He said, Master, wait a moment. I keep feeling that there's something wrong with this Zhen Kong. However, I can't see anything wrong with him. Let the grass come out and take a look. What's wrong? Chunzong was startled. He looked at Zhen Kong and asked curiously. 2 Zhen Kongs went to the Thunder Sound Temple and 1 returned. This is naturally the real Zhen Kong. Mahavairocana world revered Buddha is perceptive. How can he not see which one is real and which one is fake? Eldest martial brother. Don't worry. Zhen Kong said loudly. That fake Zhen Kong was already killed by me on the spot. Zhen Kong's voice was extremely loud. It had already traveled into the thatched cottage. Sigh, Zhen Kong. Chunzong grumbled. Why did you break the vow to kill again? Although that fake Zhen Kong was of the demon race and also interfered with our sutra-seeking extreme bliss, it was also a type of merit. Perhaps he deserved to die, but you didn't have the authority to kill him. Since you broke the vow to kill, wouldn't you lose merit? What I told you before, why didn't you listen to me? Chapter 4577. Amitba. Zhen Kong threw down his magic wand and prostrated himself on the ground. Master, you are right. This is what Mahavairocana said in Lei Temple. It is because disciple committed too many murders that I attracted the demonic tribulation. That fake Zhen Kong is the manifestation of disciple's inner demon. By killing the fake Zhen Kong, disciple will be killing my inner demon. Disciple has also said in front of revered one that from today onwards, disciple will not dare to recklessly kill. Excellent, excellent. There is a saying in the secular world that a prodigal who repents is more precious than gold. Zhen Kong, if you can really change, then Master's nagging for so many years was not in vain. Chunzang was overjoyed when he heard this and took a few steps forward. Damn it, Zhen Han. Zhen Jie said angrily, did you not hear? Hurry up and call Chong Chao out. Yes, eldest senior brother. Seeing Zhan Jie, who even Tai Bai Jinxing did not want to provoke, Zhen Han hurriedly floated to the front of the straw hut. As he walked in he called out, Master, don't be anxious. Amitba. Chunzeng smiled and stood still. He looked at Zhen Kong, who had his head lowered, and said with a smile, "Master believes that this is the real Zhen Kong." Chong Chao rubbed his eyes as he was dragged out of the straw hut by Zhen Han. He looked around in confusion. Zhen Jie squeezed out a smile that he thought was amiable and asked, "Chong Chao, you said before that you can differentiate between the real Zhen Kong and the fake Zhen Kong. To be honest, I do not believe those people from Lei Yin Temple. I am afraid that they are trying to deceive Master. I believe that you also do not wish for a demon to harm Master. Can you see if this Zhen Kong is the real Zhen Kong?" "All right." Chong Chao's eyes flashed and he nodded vigorously at Zhen Jie before looking at Zhen Kong, who was prostrating on the ground. "Zhen Kong!" Zhen Jie yelled. "Raise your head and let the grass see if you are the real Zhen Kong." "AI. Eldest senior brother," Zhen Kong said and raised his head. "This little brother is Zhen Kong. I can even recognize Lei Yin Temple's Mahavairakana revered one." Zhuo Chao trembled when he saw Zhen Kong lifting his head. His eyes were filled with fear as he instinctively dodged towards Chun Zong. Chuanzong took a look and sighed. "Zhen Jie, there is no need to look anymore. This is the real Zhen Kong." Zhen Jie had already asked Yarrow Grass before. Now that he saw Yarrow Grass's fear and tightly clenched hands, how could he not know that this was the hatred in Yarrow Grass's heart? However, he still restrained his temper and asked, "Chao Chao, you don't have to be afraid. If he is the fake Zhen Kong, I can kill him with my rake. If he really is Zhen Kong, you just nod your head." Chong Chao stared at Zhen Kong. After a while, he nodded gently and hid his face in Chun Zhang's chest. Tears flowed from his eyes and the hatred in his eyes slowly turned into relief. Zhen Kong's expression also relaxed. He looked at Zhen Jie and said, "Eldest senior brother, you can rest assured now, right?" "Humph, of course I can't rest assured." Zhen Jie raises its hoof and slaps down on Zhen Kong's shoulder. Zhen Kong doesn't even have time to dodge. Zhen Jie curses, "I was just chasing after 3 Yao Kings and you caused me so much trouble. Can't you just let me be less worried? You actually let Tai Bai Jinxing of the Immortal Palace and Manjushri of the Thunder Temple come over. You really made me lose face. Go, why aren't you going to beg for alms for your master? Also, scout the path and see if there are any demons ahead." "Yes, senior brother." Zhen Kong smiled and said, "I will go now." Then, Zhen Kong said to Chun Zong, "Master, disciple got a peach for you last time. This time, disciple will get some pears for you." Then, without waiting for Chun Zong to say anything, Zhen Kong somersaulted on the cloud and quickly left. Sigh, people will grow up. After going through this calamity, Zhen Kong finally understood. Ba, Buddhism is boundless. Chun Zong placed his palms together and bowed towards Nirvana. Then he said to Zhen Han, "Zhen Han, pack up your things. We should be on our way. After being delayed for so long, it is time to find a good family for Xiao Chao." "Yes, master." Zhen Han nodded and took out her Buddhist staff to pack up the scriptures. Draconic horse Zhen Feng smiled bitterly and walked in front of Zhen Jie. Then, he obediently enlarged his body. And this is not bad. Zhen Jie's body swayed and lay down on Draconic horse Zhen Feng's back. He stretched his waist and said with a smile, "Damn it, I didn't sleep well at the bottom of the sea." Then, Zhen Jie realized that he had misspoken and hurriedly said, "Xiao Chao, come to me. You can't always let my master carry you." Then, Zhen Jie lifted Xiao Chao from the ground and placed him on Draconic horse's back. Draconic horse Zhen Feng was angry but did not dare to say anything. He only muttered, "Damn it, I am the 10th prince of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace." Chun Zong looked at his disciples and unconsciously smiled. His footsteps became lighter and he walked in front of them with his Buddhist staff in hand. Cultivation and the heavenly Tao had no concept of time. Unknowingly, close to 50 years had passed. During these 50 years, many things had happened in the 3 continents. The grand event of the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm and the 7 sages becoming sworn brothers had become an old legend. The demon race had already replaced the previous 6 sages with the 7 sages. Every time the first sage was mentioned, they would be referring to the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix and not the golden-winged Great Peng. However, what puzzled the demon race and surprised the human race was that the bloody storm they had expected did not appear. The heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage did not force his way into the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. He only took the 6 demon realms offered by the 6 sages in name and did not show up again. There was no fighting for benefits. The strength of the 1,000 demons' sacred realm was not weakened. Naturally, the human race was extremely disappointed. The demon race also had different thoughts. Some felt that the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage was too weak and would not be able to survive in the Great Sage Hall for long. However, most of the demon race rejoiced and believed that the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage was the true first sage of the demon race. He deserved the title. The demon realms that did not belong to the 6 sages took the initiative to approach the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage's 6 demon realms. The first was naturally the Light Beast's Light Demon Realm. There were many more after that, but these demon realms were not big. Later on, the heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage chose a demon realm that was neither too big nor too small as his own, combining it with the previous 6 demon realms and changing its name. This name was not out of the expectations of the 6 sages. They were called the Dubhi Demon Realm, the Heavenly Jade Demon Realm, the Fekta Demon Realm, the Migres Demon Realm, the Alioth Demon Realm, the Mizar Demon Realm, and the Alcade Demon Realm. Of course, the demon race was still the demon race. Their bloodline was filled with competitiveness, and there was no such thing as modesty and courtesy. After the 7 great sages became sworn brothers, there was a rare period of peace. Then, when they saw their own strength increase, they had other thoughts, and the demon realm began to fight again. There were even some demon realms close to the hidden immortal continent that had plans to encroach on the human race. However, they did not dare to carry out these plans for the time being because there were faint rumors about the 3 demon realms in the sky-concealing ridge. The heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix Great Sage had a very good relationship with the Taoist Grand Ascension stage of the human race. No one dared to take the first step and risk offending the first sage of the demon race. However, since there were rumors, there were naturally waves. 50 years was too short. Perhaps in another 50 years, these small waves would become a big wave. The 1,000 demons sacred realm of the demon race was prosperous and many things had happened. The hidden immortal continent and western paradise of the human race were not peaceful either. There were also many strange things that people talked about enthusiastically. However, among these things, there were a few that were the most famous. The first was that the literature palace of the immortal palace had a master. It was a literature star that no one had ever heard of before. His strength was close to a supreme realm. This literature star's name was even more eye-catching. He was directly called Wen Chu. How many humans had there been since ancient times? How many sages and literature stars had there been? Who would dare to directly use the name of the literature star? However, this Wen Chu was called Wen Chu. Moreover, not only did the Confucian cultivators not have any objections, but even the immortal palace did not dare to say anything. This was because Wen Chu had given the immortal palace the complete 5 cheese origin technique. This was the long-cherished wish of countless generations of Confucian cultivators. Finally, at this moment they had gotten it. The immortal palace naturally returned the favor. They called Wen Chu an immortal master and treated him with the respect of all Confucian cultivators in the world. At first, the 4 great clans were dissatisfied, and the 100 clans were resentful. Wen Chu did not go to the immortal palace to enter the hall of literature and music. Instead, he went to the summit of a nameless mountain to meet the scholars of the world and fight the Confucian generals of the various clans. After 10 years, he had never tasted defeat. The 4 clans did not say anything. After the immortal palace sent down an auspicious sign, they issued an imperial decree to call Wen Chu an immortal master and welcome him to the literature palace. The place where Wen Chu and the Confucian cultivators fought was called the Literature Peak by later generations. Many literati traveled thousands of miles to pay their respects. The appearance of the literature master was too sudden. Many people speculated about his identity, including the majority of the 4 clans. They believed that this was a chess piece that the immortal palace had planted long ago. The literature master was originally a disciple of the Sun clan. However, the immortal palace was at a disadvantage right now. Immortal Emperor Gaochen had no choice but to use this important chess piece against the other clans. Moreover, the Saint of all Saints had appeared in the 1,000 demons sacred realm, and the Nanwu Maitreya Buddha had appeared in the Pure Land world. The Confucian cultivators of the hidden immortal continent were already at a disadvantage. The immortal palace had invited the master of the literature star palace, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Of course, what made the disciples of the various clans the happiest was that since Wen Chu was regarded as an immortal master, It meant that he was the master of all the Confucian cultivators in the world. The method of 5 Qis unification that he presented to the Immortal Palace was naturally the supreme scripture of all the Confucian cultivators in the world. It was no longer something that the Immortal Palace could monopolize. Both the 4 great clans and the 100 schools of thought could cultivate it. This was indeed extremely important for the development of the Confucian cultivators in the human race. 50 years was too short. The Confucian cultivators of the world were waiting for the 5 Qis origin technique to be announced gradually. Chapter 4578. Regarding one of the 3 continents, Nirvana, there were 2 major events, one happy and one sad. What made all the Buddhist sects in the world sad was that just as Lei Temple welcomed the arrival of Maitreya Buddha the world rebelled against Lei Temple. No one knew what had happened in the Lei Temple. The Maitreya Buddha and the World-Honored One had actually brought nearly 40% of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats of the Lei Temple to open another Dao field in the Shaoling Long Temple of the Great Snow Mountain. Xiling Long Temple was just a small and shabby temple before. Most people didn't even know that there was such a small temple in the world. Now, Xiling Long Temple was famous again. Of course, Maitreya Buddha the world's place couldn't be Xiling Long Temple located in Snowy Mountain. Maitreya Buddha the world waved the wonderful tree of 7 treasures and used great Buddhist power to split open the void in Snowy Mountain. With the power of thousands of Buddhas and the faith of millions, he rebuilt a hall. Maitreya Buddha the world preached the essence of Buddhism in this hall every day. Although in the eyes of the Buddhas, hundreds of millions of Buddhist disciples had long divided Buddhism into 2 branches, one called Lei Temple and the other called Xiling Long Temple. In fact, the thousands of Buddhas in Xiling Long Temple understood that there was no plaque outside the hall where they cultivated. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Buddhism had also asked Maitreya Buddha the world in person, but Maitreya Buddha the world only smiled and said, "I'm the future Buddha Lord, how can I snatch the incense of the current Buddha Lord? The cultivation of the philosophers is still in the future." Since then, the thousands of Buddhas in Xiling Long Temple didn't ask about this matter anymore. They only listened to the lectures every day and discussed the essence of Buddhism. The difference between Xiling Long Temple and Lei Temple was that Maitreya Buddha the world not only preached the essence of Buddhism that he had comprehended, but also led thousands of Buddhas to chant and discuss. Each Buddha and Bodhisattva could share their knowledge with the other Buddhas and discuss with each other. In Lei Temple, Maitreya Buddha the world preached by himself. The thousands of Buddhas only listened and didn't speak. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Buddhism also had doubts. Maitreya Buddha the world laughed and said, "The connection between Nirvana and the Buddhist kingdom is broken, so it's hard for us to determine the authenticity of what we have learned. The Mahavairocana world venerable might be one of the Buddha's avatars, but I haven't been in contact with him for a long time. Although we have different positions and different Buddha fruits, we are all disciples of Buddha. What we have learned may be a little different, but the overall trend is correct." Although Maitreya Buddha and the World-Honored One didn't say anything more, the 1,000 Buddhas already understood. They all chanted the Buddha's name. Namo Maitreya Buddha. The Buddha's aura in the entire exquisite temple became even more exuberant. Although the Shaoling Temple had split up and all the Buddhas were mourning, there was no war in the Nirvana world. The Lei Temple and the Shaoling Temple did not have any confrontation. Rather than saying it was a sad matter, it was better to say it was a peaceful breakup. The other thing was a real happy event for the Buddhism sect. After a long and arduous journey and 50 years of hardship, Chunzong and his disciples finally entered Yu province from another route of the hidden immortal continent. After more than 270 years, the sutra seeking in bliss finally came to an end. Tens of thousands of people were once again looking forward to the end of this grand event. The end of the sutra seeking in bliss was also the beginning of the Great Integration. From then on, the golden body of Namo Maitreya Buddha could be consecrated in the Zhangchao Ridge of the Town of Immortals. The scriptures and doctrines of the Confucian cultivators could also be taught in the Nirvana world. The Immortal Palace and the Lei Temple could no longer interfere with the hidden immortal continent and the Nirvana world on the surface. As for the sutra seeking in bliss after the coast of the East Sea, it did not go as smoothly as Zhenjie expected. In addition to the abrupt appearance of the 2 demon kings of the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm, there were also more and more Confucian cultivators who came out of nowhere. As a result, the Immortal Palace did not need to arrange any more tribulations. These troubles had already caused Zhenjie, who had always been lazy, to complain incessantly. However, the Confucian cultivators of the human tribe had an advantage over the great demons of the demon tribe. Although they took action, they would never eat Chun Zhang's body as an elixir of immortality. They would never endanger Chun Zhang's life. At most, they would only threaten him. In the face of these threats, Chun Zhang only recited the sutra and treated them as nothing. The human tribe Confucian cultivators were helpless and could only vent their anger on Chun Zhang's disciple. Zhan Han was a member of the Immortal Palace, so the Confucian cultivators would not make things difficult for him. Dragon Horse Zhen Feng was from the East Sea Dragon Palace. Although the Confucian cultivators wanted to deal with him, he kept saying that he was the 10th prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace. The Confucian cultivators could only believe him and not believe him. As for Zhen Jia, his strength was close to the 9th level of origin energy. Even the sage of literature was not his match, let alone an angry martial grandmaster. Therefore, the most unlucky one was Zhen Kong. After Zhen Kong experienced the real and fake Zhen Kong, Chun Zhang saw a huge change in him. Of course, this change happened slowly and without arousing Chun Zhang's suspicions. He still faced these difficulties with the devil wand. When the devil wand did not work, he would still recite the sutra mantra and calmly face them. He was like an eminent demon race monk who had been baptized by Buddhist light. Although most of the Confucian cultivators were no match for Zhen Jia, the Confucian cultivators' methods were endless. They were tens of thousands of times more powerful than the demon race. In the past 50 years, even someone as strong as Zhen Jia had to suffer. He had to lie on Dragon Horse Zhen Feng's back every day and groaned in torment. Damn it, when will these days end? These were the grand events that people were familiar with. However, there were many undercurrents that were not known to the public. One of them was the Fortune Gate in the soaring Dragon Mountain Range in the Yu province. When the Confucian, Buddhist and demon race were at their peak, the Taoist sect was also rapidly rising. Royal Highness Lan led hundreds of thousands of Taoist sect's troops to step into the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm and annihilate a demon realm expert. After killing many greater demons, he crossed the northern and eastern seas and returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range in a high-profile manner. From then on, the Fortune Gate openly appeared in the hidden Immortal Continent and no longer feared anything. After the Immortal Palace's Lunar Temple's expedition to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range was defeated, they did not send any more troops to annihilate the Fortune Gate. Maybe because 50 years was too short, the Immortal Palace did not have time to send troops, or maybe Immortal Emperor Gaochen had other plans. However, after the Fortune Gate's disciples cleared the mysterious Yellow List, the mysterious Yellow Order's experts began to surround the soaring Dragon Mountain Range. However, the mysterious Yellow Order's encirclement was different from the Immortal Palace's. They did not organize a large-scale battle, but instead sent out hunting experts to kill the Fortune Gate's disciples. Naturally, the Fortune Gate was not to be outdone. They also sent out disciples to hunt down the mysterious Yellow Order's experts. There were many battles between the two sides, and both sides had their own victories and losses. In the end, the mysterious Yellow Order's experts were angered and sent out an 8th-grade Origin Force literature saint to hunt down the Taoist sect's disciples. The first person to encounter this literature saint was Wang Bianfei. Even someone as strong as Wang Bianfei was almost killed by this literature saint. Wang Bianfei was shocked and fled into the soaring Dragon Mountain Range with injuries. That literature saint did not give up. Not only did he attack the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, but he also invited his close friends to attack the capital star formation. Moreover, he even arrogantly challenged Taoist Xiao. At this time, the soaring Dragon Mountain Range was different from when Li Xiang and the others were at the Fortune Gate. Among the Fortune Gate's disciples, not only were there Taoist sect's experts at 7th-grade Origin Force, but there were also formation masters. Under the protection of these disciples, the literature saints were not able to break through the formation. Just as the mysterious Yellow Order's experts were about to mobilize more Confucian disciples and plead with the Immortal Palace to send troops to annihilate the Fortune Gate, the mysterious Yellow Order's nightmare began. It was dusk, and a group of literature saints were about to join forces to attack the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's grand defensive formation. Rumble. From the south of the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, endless lightning bolts filled the sky, and when they reached the vicinity of the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, it was like a heavenly river had suddenly burst out. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts fell like a lightning tribulation, surrounding the entire soaring Dragon Mountain Range. The group of literature saints was shocked, and they thought that Xiao Hua had returned. They desperately resisted and tried to escape. Unfortunately, the several thousand-li radius of the soaring Dragon Mountain range was sealed by lightning. No matter how hard these literature saints struggled, they could not escape. Of the 40-plus literature saints with 8th grade origin force cultivation, 23 were killed by the lightning bolts, and the rest were seriously injured. As a 10,000 zhong tall lightning giant appeared in the sky, the surviving literature saints finally understood that the one who had returned was not Taoist Xiao, but the lightning Taoist. Since the lightning Taoist had returned, Wang Bianfei and the others led their troops to kill. Not only did they kill the remaining 20-plus literature saints, but they also killed the several 100,000 mysterious Yellow Order subordinates who had besieged the soaring Dragon Mountain range. This battle dyed the soaring Dragon Mountain range red with blood. From then on, the mysterious Yellow Order subordinates no longer dared to say anything about besieging the soaring Dragon Mountain range and exterminating the Fortune Gates disciples. On the contrary, the Fortune Gates disciples relied on the news from the endless merchant union to launch counterattacks against the mysterious Yellow Order subordinates. The 4 aristocratic families were all scholars, and seeing the Fortune Gates' strength, they wanted to deal with the Lightning Taoist. However, the Lightning Taoist was different from the Grand Mist ancestor. Not only was the Lightning Taoist's Grand Ascension Stage origin force cultivation at 9th grade origin force, but he also had several 100,000 high-grade disciples under him. None of the aristocratic families dared to say that they could win in a single battle. However, if the 100 schools of Confucian cultivators surrounded and defeated him, they would lack a commander. The Immortal Palace was raising the banner of the Immortal Master and taking back the advantage of the 100 schools of philosophers. Other than the 4 aristocratic families, no one else was qualified to put themselves under the Fortune Gates tiger's mouth. As for the 4 aristocratic families, they seemed to know some secrets and were not too keen on exterminating the Fortune Gate. The Confucian cultivators were already like this, not to mention the immortals, Buddhists, and demons joining forces to exterminate the Fortune Gate. The Buddhist sect had Maitreya Buddha leading the exquisite temple, the demon race had the first great saint of the Great Sage Temple, the literature palace had Wenxiu, who was regarded as the teacher of Confucian cultivators, and the dragon race had Taoist Yun, who was regarded as the dragon master and taught Dragon Island's small elder Ao Sheng. In this world, who had the qualifications, courage, and strength to exterminate the Fortune Gate in the soaring Dragon Mountain range? Who dared to compete with Xiao Hua and Xiao Hua? 50 years was a short time. Not to mention there was no time in the Star Moon Palace. Inside the Star Moon Palace, on top of the pavilion, Xiao Hua and his doppelgangers were meditating with their eyes closed. No one knew about the drastic changes that had taken place in the 3 continents. However, in the end, a thunderous rumble could be heard. Children of gods, 81 rounds of discussion have come to an end. We shall meet again in the future if fate allows it. The Xianhong River was known as a mysterious river in the chaotic divine realm, and the gods could not know its profound meaning. We will lead the children of gods to travel the various worlds, observe space, experience Xianhong, sense time, discuss Tao and become wise, listen quietly and discern clearly. We hope that the children of gods can make progress after leaving, condense their godhead, obtain the godhood, and pry into the divine realm. Chapter 4579. Rumble. Then, countless sounds turned into thunder, filling the entire Star Moon Palace. At this moment, Xiao Hua and his clones suddenly woke up. When they looked at the pavilion again, the stars, the moon, and the night sky were gone. All they could see was a primitive land. The 9 suns were burning fiercely, shining on the earth like flowing fire. Boom! Before Xiao Hua and the others could think of anything else, the 9 suns exploded with a loud bang. The flames mixed with lightning caused the entire world to collapse, and an unparalleled power once again enveloped the entire world. Under this power, the illusory realms shattered like bubbles, and the surviving humans and demons were revealed. Then, this power dragged everything into the shattered space and flung them out. This is the power of the realm. Xiao Hua had returned to the 3 continents from the upper realm. Under this force, he immediately felt a sense of familiarity. He blurted out and exclaimed, "Could it be that this Star Moon Palace?" Just as he said this, Xiao Hua came to his senses. The thunder had clearly said that this was the place where Xianhong debate was held. This pavilion was floating on the Xianhong River, passing through various worlds. The Star Moon Palace was not the ancient ruin that Fairy Xingyu had imagined. As for what the Star Moon Palace was, It was not something that Xueqi could know at this moment. However, Xueqi knew that under the power of the realm, he would be separated from his clones. What worried him the most was Reverend Yun. Without hesitation, he released his consciousness and shouted, "Fellow Taoists, quickly return to the space. Don't scatter to the 3 continents." Xueqi did not need to think too much. Reverend Yun was the first to notice the abnormality of the power of the realm. His body was moving in a different direction from Xueqi and the others. Reverend Yun was about to land in Xueqi's space. When he touched Xueqi's consciousness, his body flashed and his dragon body disappeared. Then, Taoist sorcerer and the others also fell into the space. A series of shadows flashed, as if they were teleporting, but also as if they were squeezing. A heavy pressure was generated in the surrounding space. Father. Within the light, little black and little yellow's figures appeared. Although these shadows were either stretched into long strips or squashed flat, little yellow's voice still resounded in Xueqi's heart. Xueqi was overjoyed and hurriedly sent them into his space. After keeping the 2 little dragons, Xueqi saw Ao Shang, Ao Zhan, and the rest of the dragon race, but he did not try to keep them away. It was so much so that at the moment when the light figure was finally annihilated, Xueqi actually saw an unfamiliar face. This face was very imposing, and his temperament was even more graceful. A kind of aura of a leader uncontrollably flowed out from between his brows. Grand Mist Ancestor. Although Xueqi had never seen the Grand Mist Ancestor's true face, he already knew that this person must be the Grand Mist Ancestor. The Grand Mist Ancestor also saw Xueqi, and when his black and white eyes met Xueqi's starry eyes, an indescribable lightning flashed in the light. At the same time when Xueqi and the Grand Mist Ancestor met for the second time, in an unknown space, there was no light and no darkness. In a strange realm, there were 2 unknown existences in the silhouette of a colossal figure. One of them had a thunderous voice, and it was the same voice that had spoken at the beginning of the discussion. This voice asked, "Jing, this discussion seems to be a little inappropriate." "All right, Daddy knows that there is indeed something strange. The place where the dragon god of a certain dragon world is located, there is no trace of the dragon god. Instead, there is an extremely weak aura. Moreover," the thunderous voice interrupted Jing's words, and it laughed. "Presumably, the dragon god has lost the qualifications to participate in the discussion, and some lucky divine fetus has obtained good fortune." There were many such things in Xianhong's discourse. After all, the Xianhong River runs through countless realms, be it the chaos divine world, the primordial immortal world, or the mortal world. In this Xianhong discussion, the treasured boat is casually roaming along the Xianhong River. Who knows how much dust it has created and how many divine seeds have fallen. This is the fortune, this is the heavenly Tao, this is the divine relationship. This divine fetus seems to be different, but this disciple does not dare to break the rules and pry into the discussion seats. I do not dare to use my divine ability to travel through space. And don't worry about it. The thunderous voice replied, "Those who are fated to learn of it, those who are not are killed. This is the Tao of fate." Also, Jing hesitated again. "What's wrong?" The thunderous voice was displeased, and it asked urgently. "Disciple asks master to punish me." Jing's voice became softer. "Oh, don't tell me." At this point, Lei Lei understood what was going on. He couldn't help but be furious. "Damn! Why didn't you report the damage to the treasure ship? Since you didn't report it, why didn't you repair it earlier? Now the chi of the chaos divine world flows into the mortal world from the treasure ship. Do you know how many lives will be lost?" Disciple. Disciple naturally did not know that the treasure ship was damaged, and the damage was too small. Disciple really did not know. It was only when Disciple noticed that there was something wrong with the dragon god seat that I realized it. It was already too late to check. Alas! The thunderous voice heaved a long sigh and was about to speak, but suddenly he was stunned and laughed. "So that's it. This chi is actually like this. The heavenly Tao, oh heavenly Tao, is really unpredictable. Even with my ability, I almost forgot myself. If so, Jing, not only is she not at fault, she has done a meritorious deed." "Really? Master?" Na Jing was very happy. "Unfortunately, you have involved another karma. You are going to face the tribulation yourself." He, master, if I have to face the tribulation, then so be it. Who is afraid of him? Don't say more. Go and repair the treasure ship. That thunderous voice said, I don't know when Xuanhong's law discussion will be held again. Mortal things. I'm afraid that in the future, you won't have the chance to peek into the heavenly Tao. Yes, master. Jing said happily and left the indescribable space. As for the other existence, the huge silhouette did not move for a long time, as if it was thinking and also as if it was taking a nap. Xiao Hua did not know what was happening outside the space. He saw the illusion overflowing, only to feel his body lighten, and the stars in front of him were even more brilliant. This is... Xiao Hua stared blankly. Feeling the gentle caress of the night wind around him, he really felt as if he was in a dream. He let out a low groan. He really couldn't tell if this place was the Star Moon Palace or the Three Continents. Xiao Hua was not in a hurry to release his divine sense. Instead, he closed his eyes and restrained all the senses in his body. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he slowly released it. The night breeze was like a lover's whisper. The moonlight was mixed with the chirping of cicadas. The willow branches raised in the wind were like the charm of the night. Waves of frogs croaked in the distance, and the occasional dog barks decorated the night. Cough, cough. The old man's cough, which had not been heard for a long time, added a human atmosphere to this tranquil night. Phew. Xiao Hua was completely relieved. Then he took a deep breath. The fresh fragrance of the earth and the rich smell of the rice field made Xiao Hua's heart feel at ease. I, Xiao, have returned to the Three Continents in the end. Rumble. Unfortunately, before he could finish sighing in relief, a burst of lightning and thunder came from the void. The indescribable power of law fell on Xiao Hua like a fishing net, not giving him any chance to dodge at all. It fell into his body. At the same time, a faint heavy pressure fell on Xiao Hua's Naiwan Palace, middle dantian, small dantian, and even his physical body. Moreover, the surrounding space also produced an indescribable rejection at the same time. It pounced on Xiao Hua like a tide, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Damn it! Xiao Hua frowned. He hurriedly waved his hand and took out a palm-sized jade talisman. It was the coarse grass talisman that Xueqi had personally refined. Xiao Hua urged his magic power. The coarse grass talisman emitted a very gentle brilliance. A mist-like restriction was released from the coarse grass talisman and slowly fell on top of Xiao Hua's head. Shwa! Xiao Hua felt a kind of coolness fall from the top of his head and pass through his body. After being imprisoned by the power of law, some of the immortal spiritual energy that still conflicted with the space of the Three Continents disappeared. The previous heavy pressure and rejection completely disappeared. This coarse grass talisman is really useful. Xiao Hua nodded. Senior Su refined a lot of them, but he didn't use them much. Now, this Xiao has benefited from them. Xiao Hua checked his body. There was no abnormality. Then, he looked around again. Xiao Hua's figure was originally standing in mid-air. After looking around, he saw that there were paddy fields all around him. His figure unconsciously descended, and his feet that had not been touched by dust for a long time stepped on the paddy field. Croak, croak. A soft sound rang out. A toad actually jumped out from the ridge of the paddy field not far away and jumped into the paddy field. Xiao Hua saw the scenery of the countryside and felt warmth in his heart. He squatted down very naturally and stretched out his hand to lift up the rice ears in the paddy field, carefully examining them. He saw that the rice ears were quite plump. Although the color was still a little green, the fragrance of the rice was already coming out from the grains. Xiao Hua pinched one out from the rice ears and twisted it in his hand. Drip, drip. A few grains fell out. Xiao Hua put these grains into his mouth and bit down with his white teeth. Green juice seeped out from the grains, and an astringent bitter fragrance seeped into Xiao Hua's mouth. The mellow fragrance that he was more familiar with in spirit herbs or spirit wine immediately filled Xiao Hua's heart. This year will definitely be a bumper harvest. Xiao Hua's face revealed a smile. It was a smile that was even more satisfied than his harvest in the Star Moon Palace. Who is it? At this moment, the light of an oil lamp came from the ridge of the paddy field in the distance, and a slightly aged voice sounded. Xiao Hua smiled and stood up from the ridge of the paddy field. He raised his voice and said, "Senior, I was passing by here. I saw that the rice in the field was growing very well, so I couldn't help but stop to take a look." Chapter 4580. Walking along the ridge of the field was an old farmer in his 60s. The old farmer wore a short shirt and held a pipe in his left hand and an oil lamp in his right. The old farmer's back was bent, but his footsteps were still hale and hearty. "Oh, so it's a young man." Seeing that Xueqi was only in his 20s and was handsome with an indescribable temperament, the old farmer couldn't help but feel close to him. He smiled and asked, "It's already so late. Why don't you hurry and find a place to stay? What's the use of looking at the rice in this field?" "Hee, this is your field, right?" Xueqi smiled and said, "Congratulations, this year is another bumper harvest." When the old farmer heard this, he couldn't help but show a sense of pride. However, there was also a hint of bitterness in his pride. He said casually, "Sigh, it's nothing. I just collected 3 to 5 more bushels." 3 to 5 bushels? Xueqi smiled and looked at the paddy field nearby. He said, "I see that the paddy fields nearby are all growing well. How could it be that you only collected 3 to 5 bushels? Young man, you also know farm work?" The old farmer was already close. He stopped and asked curiously, "You have such soft skin and tender flesh, you should be a student." Xueqi smiled and nodded. "You're right. I am a student. However, I was born in a farmer's family and I have farmed since I was young. I know everything about farming." Xueqi unconsciously raised his head and looked at the hazy starry sky in the distance. The memories that he had picked up before entering Xingyue Palace slowly flowed out. Sigh. When the old farmer heard this, he sighed and said, "I understand. You students have it the hardest. When you were young, you had to read books by oil lamps. When you grew up, you had to travel. After traveling, you had to leave your parents to continue your studies. Young man, you probably haven't been home for a long time, right?" "I won't hide it from you." Xueqi nodded and said, "It's been a long time. It's been so long that I can't even find my way home. When I think of this, I feel that I'm unfilial." "It's all right." The old farmer smiled and said, "Although there's no road under your feet, you still miss home. You can't be considered unfilial. After all, young people had to go out and explore. If there was a chance in the future, they would go back and take a look. We don't want you to have any glory or wealth, nor do we want you to be promoted. As long as you are safe and sound, father and mother will be happy." The old farmer's words were really simple. In Xueqi's ears, his words were even more useful than Xuji's immortal profound. His eyes were already somewhat misty. Although cultivation allowed Xueqi's divine abilities to reach the heavens, his heart, in the end, couldn't leave the ground. "You must be tired, young man." Seeing that Xueqi didn't speak, the old farmer pointed to a small shed in front of him and said, "Come with me to rest there. It's already late at night, and everyone in the village is resting. Why don't you stay with me for the night? There's still some porridge in my shed that my son delivered last night. I'm afraid it's still warm. Drink some to warm your stomach first." Xueqi originally wanted to refuse. How could he have the time to dawdle with an old man from the countryside? However, he really didn't dare to disappoint the old farmer's hospitality. After pondering for a bit, he bowed and said, "Deference is no substitute for obedience. This young one thanks the elder's good intentions. Haha, let's go. Don't haggle over words with me. If we talk for a bit longer, the elegant words I learned from others will all be gone." The old man smiled and wanted to raise his hand to pat Xueqi's shoulder. However, looking at Xueqi's bright clothes, he didn't dare to raise his hand. As he spoke, he led Xueqi to a place in the field. At the end of the field, there was a small shed. Below the shed, there were 5 or 6 wooden pillars inserted into the field. A few feet away from the field, there were some wooden planks that were used to set up seats. In the other direction of the shed, there were also some fields. However, instead of rice, there were some faint green leaves. Those leaves rustled in the breeze like music. On the wooden planks of the shed, there were some bedding and some dried straw. Among the straw, there was a pitch-black jar that was about a foot in size. The jar wasn't tightly covered, and the smell of the bedding mixed with the fragrance of rice gushed out of the jar. Xueqi couldn't help but frown. "Elder." Xueqi hurriedly waved his hand and said, "I still have some things to do." Ha! As soon as he saw Xueqi frown, how could the old man not know what Xueqi was thinking? He laughed loudly and said, "Young man, don't be anxious, don't be anxious. You scholars are all from the lower realm. How could I let you feel wronged and sleep on my bedding?" As he spoke, the old man nimbly jumped onto the wooden planks and kicked the messy bedding to the edge of the field. He then fiddled with the dried straw bit and took out some paper from one side of the shed. He smiled and said, "The night isn't particularly cold. You can put up with it. This paper is enough to block the wind." Xueqi smiled and still waved his hand and said, "No need, elder." The old man acted as if he didn't hear him. He touched the jaw with his hand and was somewhat worried. He then looked at the other side of the straw shed. He seemed to be whispering, but also seemed to be discussing with Xueqi. "This porridge isn't cold yet. There's no need to heat it up. However, I don't have any more bowls and chopsticks here. I have to go wash them. It's a pity that the melons in this field aren't ripe yet. Otherwise, eating a melon wouldn't be bad. I'll go wash the bowls and chopsticks." As he spoke, the old man took off the lid that covered the jar. It was a somewhat shabby porcelain bowl. He looked at the paddy field not far away and then looked further away. It seemed like he was thinking about where to wash it. It seemed like the paddy field was the place where the old man washed the porcelain bowl. However, the water in the paddy field was clearly somewhat dirty. He wanted to go to a place with a clean water source to clean it. Xueqi originally wanted to stop him. However, he changed his mind and put down his raised hand. Meeting was fate. He didn't mind giving this honest old man or his family some opportunities. "Young man, wait a moment." "Sure enough," the old man said somewhat awkwardly. "I'll go wash the bowls and chopsticks for you." "Thank you, elder." Xueqi smiled and nodded. Seeing that Xueqi was no longer polite, the old man was also happy. Just as the old man was about to leave, Xueqi suddenly frowned. He raised his eyes and looked at a corner of the night sky. It seemed like something had happened there. "Damn it." Xueqi suddenly cursed in a low voice. With a flick of his finger, several golden threads fell into the void and disappeared. Then Xueqi said to the old man, "Elder, there's no need to be so troublesome." When this young man passed by the village in front, he already ate some things. "Right now, I'm not hungry." Moreover, this young man also brought some jujubes with him. Come, elder, you should also have a taste." As he spoke, Xueqi reached into his bosom to take some jujubes. The old man laughed and immediately exposed Xueqi's lie. "Young man, don't try to deceive this old man. If you ate at Jiuzhou village at night, how could they let you out? No matter what, they would have to let you stay for a night. My Shao Empire's people have an unwritten rule. As long as they meet a wandering disaster victim, they must do their best to help, not to mention a traveling scholar like you." "Shao Empire?" Xueqi was stunned and asked curiously, "Which Shao Empire?" "It's the fiend god blood pool." Speaking up to hear, Xueqi first laughed. This old man was a country bumpkin. How could he know about the fiend god blood pool? Unexpectedly, the old man actually answered and said proudly, "Naturally, after the fiend god blood pool disappeared, Daoist Shao spread the good seeds and created the Shao Empire." "Young man, don't tell me you don't know Yan Province's most famous Shao Empire." "Sigh." Xueqi sighed and replied, "Elder, you don't know. Actually, this young man is lost and doesn't know where he is going." Hee, it's about the same as what this old man thought. If you didn't get lost, how could a scholar without the strength to truss a chicken walk alone at night? You should rest at this old man's place for a night. Tomorrow, I'll let my eldest child help you find a book boy." The old man laughed very honestly. Although he already had some doubts, he didn't say it until now. Obviously, he was protecting a scholar's self-esteem. Xueqi's heart warmed. He hurriedly took out a handful of spirit dates from his bosom and said, "Elder, you really don't need to wash the dishes. This young man met a senior a few days ago. He gave this young man some immortal dates. If you don't believe me, you can try it. Just eat one and you won't be hungry for a day." "Fresh dates? How can there be any fresh dates at this time?" "Oh, immortal. Immortal dates." The old man first thought that Xueqi didn't want to trouble him, but then he realized. When the fragrance of the immortal dates floated over, he couldn't help but be startled. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Young man, this kind of immortal item. You should carefully keep it. Don't take it out so easily. It will bring disaster. It's fine, it's fine. Xiaohua smiled and said, this young man has always been careful. If it wasn't for elders' concern for this young man wouldn't dare to take it out. As he spoke, Xiaohua walked to the front of the shed, stepped on the wooden plank and sat down cross-legged. He raised his hand and said, Elder, come and try it. Hee, okay. The old man didn't hold back and agreed. He stepped into the paddy field and washed the porcelain bowl and chopsticks that still had some rice grains in it. He then walked back with a smile. After putting away the bowl and chopsticks, the old man sat on the wooden plank of the shed. His feet that were dripping with mud dangled outside the plank. The old man sat down and carefully picked up a spirit date from Xiaohua's hand. He smelled it and gently bit a small crescent moon with his teeth. Then, he chewed it a few times. The old man didn't bite much, so how could he chew it? However, the fragrance still filled his mouth and nose, and a warm current flowed into his throat. It really is an immortal item. The old man's eyes were filled with surprise. He carefully put the spirit date that he bit a bit into his bosom. Needless to say, the old man took the spirit date and naturally left it for his family. Xiaohua didn't ask him if it was for his wife, his children, or his grandchildren. He simply put all the dates in his hands on the wooden plank and said with a smile, Elder, you can eat it yourself. There are still so many here. You can take them all. Chapter 45-81. How can this be? The old man was a little embarrassed, but looking at the spirit jujubes, he couldn't bear to part with them and muttered, You still have to eat them yourself. It's all right. Xiaohua smiled. This Xiaoshang's guard still have some. When Elder's eldest child sends this Xiaoshang back tomorrow, won't this Xiaoshang have something to eat? Then this old man won't be polite. The old man carefully hid the spirit jujubes in his clothes. There were more than 10 of them. In the end, the old man looked at the remaining 2 spirit jujubes on the wooden plank and gave them to Xiaohua. He said with some unease, You should take these too. If you can't find your guards tomorrow. Okay. Xiaohua didn't refuse and accepted the 2 spirit jujubes. He asked, Elder, this Xiao Shang has actually heard of the Xiao country. Although this time I didn't come to the Xiao country specifically to travel, I still had the intention to take a look. After all, this is a paradise opened by a Dao sect cultivator. In this Xiao Shang's eyes, this is inconceivable. Elder, can you tell this Xiao country to this Xiao Shang first? Okay. The old man nodded and took out the tobacco from his waist. As he stuffed tobacco into the tobacco, he said, Actually, this old man's original home wasn't here. Xiaohua sat cross-legged in the straw hut with a smile on his face as he listened to the old man's story. He then released his divine sense to check the Xiao country situation. It wouldn't have mattered if he didn't look, but when he looked, Xiaohua's brows furrowed slightly. But it was only a moment before Xiaohua smiled again. Because in his divine sense, not only did he see something he didn't like, he also saw Ao Shang, Xueqi, and more than 10 Fortune Gate disciples. Xiaohua used a divine ability to give a few instructions, then withdrew his divine sense and focused on listening to the old man's story. What the old man said at the beginning was similar to what Xiaohua knew, but in the end, Xiaohua was a little surprised. Because according to what the old man had said, the current Xiao Empire didn't have any Taoist Empire or Confucian Empire. However, at the borders of the Xiao Empire, there were many small Taoist empires that had sprung up. These Taoist empires were constantly encroaching on the borders of the Xiao Empire. In the past 40 years, many lands had already been incorporated into these Taoist empires. The farmers who were originally farming on these lands were either incorporated into the Taoist empires or forced to search for land in the Xiao Empire. Of course, there were even some who lost their homes again. This Xiaohua. Xiaohua sneered and thought to himself, there are only 2 origins of this Dao sects. One is the Grand Mist ancestors' subordinates. They want to get a share of the Xiao country. However, these Dao sects are only a small part. The majority of them have other origins. They must be the disciples of the 100 schools of thought. They don't dare to openly defy the 4 great families. It's the orders of the sage of literature from the other families. Instead, they support some puppet Dao sects to do shady business. Sigh. In the end, the old man sighed. He looked into the distance and said, The border of the Mo Wu country is only a few hundred li away from our village. Perhaps, it won't be long before our village is occupied by the Mo Wu country. I heard that the king of the Mo Wu country is very domineering. Anyone who joins the Mo Wu country has to pay a heavy tax. Previously, there were many people who voluntarily joined the Mo Wu country, but now they are regretting it. Some of them escaped. However, the land in the Xiao country already belongs to someone. When they return, it's inevitable that there will be some fighting. A few days ago, there was even a fight. Old sir. Xiao Hua nodded. He pointed at the place where his divine sense had swept and asked, previously, when this Xiao Shang came from there, I saw many people flying in the sky. They used spells to throw some huge rocks and soil into the paddy field. Is this the Mo Wu country's way of seizing land? What a sin! When the old man heard this, he couldn't help but reveal a regretful expression. He said, the paddy field that was planted for half a year was destroyed just like that. How could they care about the lives of us farmers? Even if they want to occupy the land, they don't have to destroy the farmland. The rice that was about to be harvested was all gone in an instant. After saying this, the old man said, young man, you're right. This is just one of their methods of seizing land. If they destroy the farmland, we farmers will no longer be able to cultivate. Naturally, we will have to go elsewhere. Wouldn't this land be barren? They will naturally take it back. Is there any other way? Xiao Hua looked interested. However, his eyes had long since narrowed, looking a little angry. This is nothing. The old man bitterly smiled. There's something even more outrageous. Elder, tell me. Let this Xiao Shang broaden his horizons. Xiao Hua asked. I heard that sometimes, they will take advantage of the night when the villagers are asleep and use their magic to make a village's thatched cottage disappear. When the villagers wake up, they have no home. These villagers can only take the initiative to leave. The old man thought for a moment and said, also, if there are still people who don't leave, they will turn the village into a lot of snakes, rats, and even ferocious beasts. They will bite the villagers to death or scare them away. Damn it! Xiao Hua couldn't help but curse. Also, the old man said again, if this doesn't work, they will turn the surroundings of the village into cliffs, making it impossible for the villagers to leave. They will starve to death. I got it. Xiao Hua stood up. His face was a little gloomy. He said, good will be rewarded, evil will be repaid. It's not that there won't be any retribution. Now that the time has come, good and evil will be repaid. Junior, what do you want to do? The old man hurriedly stood up in fright. He pulled Xiao Hua and said, you are just a scholar who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Don't worry, elder. Xiao Hua smiled and patted the back of the old man's rough hand. He said previously, it was this Xiao who didn't think it through. This Xiao's ability is limited. Moreover, this Xiao's development has indeed exceeded this Xiao's expectations. Now, this Xiao has the ability to protect all of you. All of you can peacefully live and work here. As he spoke, Xiao Hua's figure slowly flew up into the air. Bursts of lightning appeared around his body. As the thunder rumbled, the entire horizon was illuminated by golden light. Xiao country is Taoist Zhao's Xiao country. It is also the Xiao country of a group of displaced commoners. No matter if it is the human race or the demon race, if they can peacefully live in my Xiao country, this Xiao will welcome them. However, if there are people who have ulterior motives and rely on their divine ability to bully the commoners, then they are going against this Xiao and making things difficult for this Xiao. I am Taoist Xiao. Today I give the order. Evil. Evil will be repaid. Whoever dares to have any ideas about my Xiao country, tonight, will pay back tenfold. Xiao Hua used his divine ability. Every word and sentence was like thunder in the Xiao country. Whether it was the commoners, Confucian cultivators, or Taoist sects, they were all awakened. Taoist Xiao, Taoist Xiao? The old man in the straw hut seemed to have awakened from a dream. He couldn't help but fall to the ground and say with his head, Taoist Xiao, the savior, you have finally come. Then, he was even more surprised. He jumped up and rushed to the village as if he had gone mad. He shouted, I see Taoist Xiao, I see Taoist Xiao. Xiao Hua saw lights appear on the ground, like hearts that were awakening. He took out the Kunlun mirror. With a shake, Tens of thousands of Shanhua continent's disciples flew out. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept out and pulled Ao Shang and Xueqi, who were flying in the distance, over. Xiao Hua shouted sternly, "Where is Xueqi?" "Disciple is here." Xueqi hurriedly bowed. "Master's previous instructions. Have you investigated clearly?" Xiao Hua asked. "Yes, Master knows." Xueqi replied, "Disciple has captured more than a dozen cultivators who were doing evil in the night. I have already found out a lot of information. These disciples are under your command." Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed at the army of tigers and wolves. He ordered, "I'll give you 1 day's time to destroy all the countries around the Xiao country. Capture those evil monarchs back to the soaring Dragon Mountain range and interrogate them. You must find the mastermind behind the scenes and eliminate all evil." "Yes, disciple accepts the order." Xueqi complied and led the tens of thousands of Fortune Gate disciples away. Master Xiao. Seeing that the Fortune Gate disciples had left, Ao Sheng respectfully asked, "Do you need disciple to do anything for Master Xiao?" "No need." Xiao Hua looked at Ao Sheng and asked, "What did you gain from the Star Moon Palace?" "The Star Moon Palace is wonderful beyond words." Ao Sheng couldn't help but smile when he heard this. He hurriedly replied, "Disciple has gained a lot." "All right, there's no need to go into details." Xiao Hua raised his hand to stop Ao Sheng from continuing. The Kunlun mirror in his hand vibrated, and a light beam overflowed. He said, "This is just the beginning of your cultivation. The real test is coming next." "Yes, disciple understands." Ao Sheng nodded with anticipation in his eyes. When the light beam from the Kunlun mirror swept across, Xiao Hua kept it into the space and asked Reverend Yun to give Ao Sheng a small part of the dragon crystal from the Supreme Dragon God, as well as some useful things that the Dragon Clan had obtained from the Star Moon Palace. After arranging Ao Sheng's matters, Xiao Hua's consciousness entered the space again, and carefully sent the items left behind by the heaven-devouring beast and Di Ting into Blackie and Goldie's bodies. As expected, when the two divine beast soul essences entered their bodies, the two little fellows couldn't fully accept it. Not to mention that their bodies were fluctuating in and out of the space, even their brains were emitting chaotic energy waves that roared and rushed out in all directions. Activating his divine ability, Xiao Hua constantly paid attention to the two little fellows' changes, smoothing out any uncontrollable changes. After a full hour, the two little fellows finally calmed down and fell into a deep sleep. One of them was a black heaven-devouring beast's shadow that shrouded Blackie, while the other was a yellow Di Ting's shadow that covered Goldie. Both shadows emitted different rhythms of energy waves that slowly converged into the two little fellows' bodies. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4582. Xiao Hua waited for a while longer. Seeing that the two little ones were no longer moving, he sealed the two different spaces and left. Phew! Xiao Hua looked at the fields and let out a long sigh. A smile appeared on his face as he thought to himself, although I don't know how little yellow and little black absorb the soul essence, and the way they absorb the soul essence is different. Shenhong said clearly that the soul essence is the most mysterious thing in the world. Any existence that can be passed down through the soul essence has unlimited potential. When the two little ones awaken, it will be the time when the heaven-devouring beast and Di Ting reappear in the world. After dealing with Ao Shang and the two little ones, Xiao Hua's figure was now in the air. He looked down at the boundless paddy fields, villages, and people with a smile in his eyes. All those years ago, when he sowed seeds in the fiend god blood swamp, it was only a spur-of-the-moment idea, and he couldn't bear to let the swamp become desolate. However, he'd never imagined that in just a little over 200 years, the fiend god blood swamp that caused one's expression to turn pale just now had already become a paradise that protected an extremely large number of refugees. Now, in Xiao Hua's eyes, this magnificent scene was far more impactful than what he had heard before. However, there was no paradise in this world that didn't need strength to support it, and there was no paradise that wasn't coveted by others. In just 50 years, the Xiao Empire that no one dared to probe before was now being probed by the Devil's Claws, even though Xiao Hua, who founded the Xiao Empire, was already a Mahayana stage human. Previously, when this Xiao was not strong enough, these literary sages might have felt that this Xiao wasn't a threat and only admired me. But now that this Xiao's strength has surpassed theirs, their mentality has changed? Xiao Hua pinched his chin and thought to himself, or perhaps they are busy with other things and have put the Xiao Empire's matter to the back of their minds. Although this Xiao is already a Mahayana stage human, after returning to the 3 continents, I only made a thunderous strike in the 1,000 demons sacred realm and then disappeared without a trace. I didn't express my attitude towards the Xiao Empire's matter, so this caused those ambitious Confucian cultivators and Taoist cultivators to have ideas? Yes, this Xiao has to ask Xueqi and the others for their opinions. I don't want to let a good thing that is beneficial to the people end up in an unsightly state. Was also at this time that dawn broke in the east. A ray of sunlight crossed the horizon, wiping away the remaining darkness between heaven and earth, rapidly enveloping the entire earth. A new day had arrived. Xiao Hua habitually opened his mouth and a bit of sun essence fell into his mouth. Before he could swallow it, the crystal-like godhead hidden in Xiao Hua's brain slightly trembled again. Countless power of faith gushed out from all over the hidden immortal continent and fell into the godhead, turning into faint crystal threads. Looking at the ground again, in the village, countless villagers, old and young, rushed out of their houses and stood on the ground. Under the effect of the crystal godhead, the entire Xiao country, and even outside of the Xiao country, hundreds of thousands of miles away, no matter the distance, even the mortals could clearly see Xiao Hua's appearance. Billions of people, who were regarded as ants by cultivators, all knelt on the ground in the morning light. Without any rhythm or command, everyone kowtowed from the bottom of their hearts. Greetings, Spiritual Master Xiao. Thank you, Spiritual Master Xiao, for saving our lives. Swoosh. Xiao Hua's eyes became blurry all of a sudden. His silent tears couldn't help but fall down. What he did was merely an unintentional action. Yet, in the eyes of these ordinary people, this unintentional action was even more important than the heavens. They couldn't help but place all their hopes on him. This kind of faith was not only a kind of opportunity, it was also a kind of heavy hope. Seeing them, Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of his own parents. He didn't know whether it was him who saved these villagers or these villagers who helped him. Xiao Hua had a lot of problems. His heart was soft, his ears were soft, he was indecisive, and sometimes he was even a little fussy. He liked to be a good person, but he had an advantage that others didn't often have, and that was gratitude. Even if he was an ant in the eyes of cultivators, as long as Xiao Hua had the slightest kindness, he would repay it with gusto. If it was someone else, seeing billions of villagers kneeling and kowtowing, they wouldn't be able to help but be high-spirited and full of vigor. But Xiao Hua's first thought was whether he was worthy of these villagers' worship, and whether he could do something for the villagers' faith to repay the benefits brought to him by their faith. Xiao Hua took a deep breath and raised his hand. Without using any magic power, he lifted the billions of villagers. Xiao Hua's voice reverberated within several thousand li radius, as if it was ringing in the villagers' hearts. Everyone, please rise. This Xiao was born in a farmer's family. Although this Xiao has cultivated for a long time, seeing you is like seeing this Xiao's parents, like seeing this Xiao's family. There are many goals in cultivation, either to defy the heavens with one's own strength, or to seek immortality by following the heavens. But this Xiao has always thought that these goals are too lofty. This Xiao's goal in cultivation is to live a peaceful life, and to use my strength to protect the world's people when they are in trouble. Since everyone believes in this Xiao and worships this Xiao, then this Xiao also swears that this Xiao will not let you down in this life, and my fortune gate will also not dare to let you down. Cut. Lightning rumbled within 10,000 li radius, and images of heavenly dragons, flying phoenixes, cheilants, and other illusory images appeared. Thousands of auspicious signs rushed out from the void, covering the entire Xiao country. While everyone was still in shock, the lightning gathered and condensed into a lightning bolt as thick as a child's arm, striking straight down from the sky. Taoist Xiao. Everyone turned pale with fright, and their hearts trembled. Boom. The lightning bolt landed on Xiao Hua's forehead, and a dreamlike landscape atlas appeared under the lightning bolt. It then entered Xiao Hua's body and rushed into the crystal-like godhead. Then, a kind of peace, a kind of tranquility, and a kind of absolute trust fell into the crystal threads connected to the godhead, transcending time and space, and filled the hearts of millions of villagers. Feeling the same as Xiao Hua, millions of villagers had tears streaming down their faces. Whether they were young or old, that kind of gratitude and Xiao Hua's appearance were deeply engraved in their hearts. Master. At this time, Xueqi's voice sounded. Disciple has already captured all the Xiao country's rulers and royal family's disciples. So fast. Xiao Hua was a little dazed. It had only been half a day. Xueqi reported meticulously. Good. Master knows that there are 21 Taoist countries near the Shao country, 10 Confucian countries, and 3 Buddhist countries. Among them, 2 Buddhist countries and 1 Confucian country did not encroach on the Shao country's territory. The remaining 30 countries are nothing but ants in front of our Fortune Gate's army. Wherever our army passes, they crumble. There is no decent resistance. Good, you lead the way. We will return to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Xiao Hua ordered, and took out the Pegasus from his space. The Pegasus stretched its neck and neighed, and with a flap of its wings, it rushed towards the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Respectfully sending off Taoist Xiao. Millions of villagers couldn't help but cry and kneel down. They really hoped that Taoist Xiao would be with them and protect them for the rest of their lives, as well as their descendants. However, they were clear that while they were busy all year round, working hard for their own livelihood, Taoist Xiao also had to cultivate. It was best for him to be himself. It was a bright afternoon in the Fortune Dao Palace. Xiao Hua's chair was empty as usual, and there were 4 chairs placed in front of it. At this time, 2 of the chairs were occupied by Prince Lan and Li Xiang, while the other 2 chairs were empty. Below the high platform, there were some Golden Core disciples and Foundation Establishment disciples. Most of these disciples stood beside Li Xiang. On Lan Lan's side, other than a few Golden Core disciples, there were also a few Spirit-Severing disciples. These disciples didn't have any arrogance on their faces, nor did they show any special respect. As for the Thunderbolt Immortal, Fu Jiwen, and the other inner disciples, they weren't in the Fortune Gate Palace. At this time, Lan Lan's cultivation had already surpassed Li Xiang's, approaching the late nascent soul stage. His gaze swept across the entire Fortune Gate Palace, and he said, "Senior brother Li, I have something to discuss with you today." Lan Lan's words carried a hint of discussion, but his gaze only lingered on Li Xiang for a moment before he looked outside the hall. There was a kind of authority and confidence in his voice. "Haha, junior brother." Li Xiang laughed. "What is it?" "Junior brother has already far surpassed me in handling the sex affairs. Junior brother can make all the decisions, and I will only be the advisor." Just as Royal Highness Lan was about to speak, his gaze swept past the spirit-severing disciples beside him, and his tone changed as he sighed. "When senior brother mentioned planning, junior brother can easily recall the time when you, me Xueqi, and junior brother Chong Yu racked our brains on how to develop the Fortune Gate. Sometimes, we even quarreled over some differences of opinion. Although it was difficult at that time, looking back it was true happiness. Now, junior brother Chong Yu is gone, and it's impossible for us to return to that time." Hearing Lan Lan mention Chong Yu, Li Xiang's expression changed, and he sighed deeply. He looked at the disciples below the stage and said, "Yes, at that time, the 4 of us worked together to develop the Fortune Gate under the pressure of Confucian cultivators. We were afraid that we would fail to live up to Master's expectations. Now that I think about it, the changes in the past few decades are bigger than the changes in the past 200 years. Haha, it's not just big. It's simply earth-shattering." His Highness Lan said proudly, "Master is a miracle, and in his hands, our Fortune Gate is also a miracle. Although the 3 continents are big, which Taoist force can compare to our Fortune Gate?" Chapter 45-84. Li Xiang hesitated for a moment before reminding, "Junior brother, the Grand Mist Ancestor, is an extremely powerful figure. He was the strongest person in the Taoist Gate in the past, and he was only defeated by the combined forces of the Confucian, Buddhist, and demon sects." "Hee. Senior brother Li." Lan chuckled. "It's good that you're so careful. However, if you had seen Master's majestic appearance in the 1,000 demonic sacred grounds, and if you had seen my Fortune Gate's hundreds of thousands of soldiers flying across the 1,000 demonic sacred grounds, all the demonic beast clans would give way to them. You wouldn't be so cautious anymore. Moreover, Martial Uncle Lei Ting is guarding the soaring Dragon Mountain range. He's also a human Grand Ascension stage cultivator, and his methods aren't any weaker than Master's. That day, he was enraged and killed more than 10 Confucian saints. Ha, even if it's the Grand Mist Ancestor, does he have such methods?" "All right." Li Xiang nodded and replied, "We're finally at the end of our suffering. This victory was obtained by sacrificing the lives of the Fortune Gate's disciples, so we must cherish it." "Of course. Lan Huan said disapprovingly. How could junior brother not know? Oh, I wonder what junior brother wanted to discuss just now? Li Xiang pulled Lan Huan back to the topic and asked, why don't you tell me, and I'll give you some advice. Oh, it's like this. Lan Huan chuckled. A few days ago, Taoist Master Qing Su sent an envoy over to discuss the division of forces in the 9 prefectures. Li Xiang frowned when he heard Huang Xiaolong's words. Junior brother, since Master has already agreed to join forces with the Grand Mist Ancestor, you should do as Master says. But now, Fu Jiwen, Yu Zhongquan, Xian Songzi, and the other senior brothers have returned. Although they won't interfere with the Fortune Gates affairs, I feel that it's better to discuss with them. After all, the division of forces in the 9 prefectures is too sensitive and important. Oh, if possible, it's best to ask Martial Uncle Lei Ting. Sigh. Senior brother Li. Helplessness appeared on Prince Lan's face, but there was also a trace of pride in his helplessness. Martial Uncle Lei Ting, Fu Jiwen, and the other senior brothers don't care about the affairs of the sect. They have already said that as long as you and I discuss it, they will agree. This. Li Xiang hesitated for a moment before persuading Huang Xiaolong. Junior brother, elder brother has something that I've always wanted to tell junior brother. Since we're talking about cooperating with the Grand Mist Ancestor, elder brother has to remind junior brother. We don't know the Grand Mist Ancestor's strength, but our Fortune Gate strength has been seen through by Taoist Qing Su and Venerable Lord Heaven Flipping Master. If they are sincere, why haven't they revealed their strength to us? This kind of cooperation didn't seem too appropriate. Moreover, the hidden immortal mainland is the world of Confucian cultivators. Although our Fortune Gate strength is at its peak, compared to the 100 schools of Confucian cultivators, we are still lacking. The main reason why the Confucian cultivators haven't besieged our soaring Dragon Mountain range is because they don't want to be the first sacrifice. However, if our Fortune Gate and the Grand Mist Ancestors' plan is too big and cross their bottom line, we will provoke the Confucian, Buddhist, and demon race to join forces again. Then, it won't just be a disaster for our Fortune Gate, it will also bring disaster to Master. Therefore, elder brother thinks that Master has gone to the Star Moon Palace, right? Let's wait for him to return from the Star Moon Palace before we decide. It's better. What senior brother thinks is also what junior brother thinks. Prince Lan smiled and said, previously, junior brother asked Taoist Qing Su, and Taoist Qing Su didn't hide anything from him. He even told junior brother about the situation of the Tao Gate seniors who escaped from the Peng Lai Immortal region. However, he isn't the Grand Mist Ancestor, so he doesn't know everything. But if you want the Grand Mist Ancestor to announce their forces, only Master and Martial Uncle Lei Ting have the qualifications to do so. Junior brother, you are representing our Fortune Gate and Master. Since the Grand Mist Ancestor isn't willing to reveal anything to you, it means that he doesn't have any sincerity. There's no point in doing this kind of unequal cooperation. Junior brother understands. However, it's rare for our Tao Gate to be in such a good situation. Junior brother has to do something for Master and the Tao Gate. While junior brother is arguing for what's right, I also want to take advantage of the fact that the Confucian sect hasn't gone all out to deal with our Tao Gate. I want to set up a trap and move away all the chess pieces that should be moved. This will build a good foundation for Master to take over in the future. Li Xiang heard Prince Lan's righteous words and could only nod his head and say, then junior brother, please tell me about the plan you discussed with Taoist Qing Su. Prince Lan began to speak frankly and frankly. The more Li Xiang listened, the more his face changed. A feeling of fear and trepidation rose in his heart. Before Prince Lan could finish, Li Xiang hurriedly waved his hand and said, junior brother, this matter is too important. We can't make a decision. I feel that we have to explain this matter to Martial Uncle Lei Ting. If we don't have the confidence to control this plan, then our Fortune Gate will be used as a tool. Prince Lan raised his eyebrows and laughed. Of course our Fortune Gate has the ability to control. That iron army of hundreds of thousands is rare in this world. Which Confucian sect family dares to go against our Fortune Gate? Junior brother, is there anything else? Li Xiang saw that Prince Lan was in high spirits and knew that it wasn't easy to persuade him. He changed the topic and said, let's discuss other things first. Let senior brother think about this matter. All right. His Highness Lan helplessly agreed. He was somewhat resentful of this unambitious senior brother of his. However, when he thought about how Li Xiong couldn't even manage the small Taoist kingdom well back then, he could only blame his bad luck for not being able to do something earth-shattering before Xiaohua returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. The second matter is about the disciple recruitment. His Highness Lan's tone had lost its fervor, and his interest waned as he said, although the mysterious yellow token has stopped attacking our soaring Dragon Mountain range, little brother feels that there will still be mysterious yellow tokens in the Yu province and the other 8 provinces. This is very disadvantageous for our Fortune Gates recruitment. Junior brother wants senior brother Yu Feng to bring some low-level disciples to other parts of the hidden immortal mainland to recruit disciples. Li Xiong didn't think much of it and nodded. Recruiting disciples has always been our Fortune Gate's #1 priority. Senior brother Yu Feng will also bring Qin Xiaoyao and the other disciples. After all, senior brother Yu Feng is not familiar with the hidden immortal mainland. Qin Xiaoyao and the other disciples have more experience. Oh, junior brother has already told senior brother Yu Feng about this. This year, Qin Xiaoyao and the other disciples will not be allowed to leave the mountain for the time being. Prince Lan smiled and said, after all, the outside world is much more dangerous than before. Li Xiong was stunned for a moment, and he raised his head to look at Yu Feng, who was neither arrogant nor humble. A bitter smile appeared on his face. Yu Feng was a spirit-severing disciple, and he had followed Prince Lan back from the Thousand Demons' sacred grounds. Normally, Yu Feng and the other disciples would be guarding the Fortune Dao Palace and listen to Prince Lan's and Li Xiong's orders. But in reality, Yu Feng and the other disciples only listened to Prince Lan's orders and turned a deaf ear to Li Xiong's orders. Therefore, Prince Lan used Yu Feng as an excuse, and Li Xiong couldn't do anything about it. Although Li Xiong had a trace of suspicion in his heart, and felt that Prince Lan was taking advantage of the disciple recruitment to expand his strength, he didn't have any evidence against him, and he didn't want to think in that direction. All right, since junior brother has already made up his mind, then we'll do as junior brother says. Li Xiong smiled. We're all working hard for the development of the Fortune Dao Palace. Senior brother is willing to support you unconditionally. In that case, many thanks to senior brother. Prince Lan smiled proudly, and then looked at the Fortune Dao Palace in high spirits. In the past 50 years, he had made decisions in the Fortune Dao Palace more than once, and he was already used to the feeling of being able to act freely. Disciples. Suddenly, a thunderous voice resounded in the sky above the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Taoist Xiao is back. Open the mountain-protecting grand array and line up to welcome him. Ah, Master is back? When Li Xiong heard the lightning Taoist's voice, he immediately jumped up from his seat and exclaimed in disbelief, He's finally back. Prince Lan was also shocked for no reason. When he came back to his senses, he looked at the jubilant atmosphere in the Fortune Dao Palace, and he felt as if he had been pushed down from the clouds into the abyss. His face was filled with ecstasy as he shouted, Yes, yes! Master is finally back. Senior brother Li, let's hurry up and welcome him. Yu province was far away from Gun province, but with Xiaohua's lightning escape, it seemed closer. Before the soaring Dragon Mountain range appeared in Xiaohua's divine sense, the lightning Taoist's voice sounded in his mind again. Haha, fellow Taoist, you're finally back. What did you gain from the Star Moon Palace? Why don't you guess? Xiaohua was also happy, and he replied in his mind with a smile. TCH, is there a need to guess? The lightning Taoist said disdainfully. Fellow Taoist, you didn't even let go of a copper coin. This Star Moon Palace must have been completely plundered by you, right? Hee, fellow Taoist, you're wrong this time. Xiaohua smiled and told the lightning Taoist about what he and the others had seen in the Star Moon Palace. The lightning Taoist sighed in pity. Damn it, it can't be. This Star Moon Palace is actually a place where the gods discuss the laws? It's not an ancient ruin at all. I didn't go, it's a huge loss. Don't worry. Taoist Wu took advantage of the opportunity and said, Fellow Taoist Tian Dao and fellow Taoist Karma are also listening. We've borrowed a lot from them. When you return to the space, just listen to their teachings. Fellow Taoist Xiao has also left the corresponding elixir for you. Swoosh. When he heard about the elixir, the lightning Taoist couldn't help but instantly enter the space. When he came out, he shamelessly reached out and asked Xiaohua for it. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4585. Xueqi had no choice but to follow the thunderclap immortal into the space and take out the thing he had obtained earlier. As expected, the thunderclap immortal's eyes lit up when he saw the bamboo joint that condensed the long river. He raised his hand almost without hesitation and took the bamboo joint in his hand. After he released his spirit sense, he looked at it carefully for a while and said with a smile, "There is a long river sealed in this thing. The aura of this long river is not from an ordinary realm. If I'm not mistaken, it has something to do with the wisp of purple gas that I obtained earlier. I will refine this bamboo joint and the aura of the long river will be integrated into my body. It will be similar to the effect of fellow Taoist taking the clear feather pill. Haha. Many thanks, fellow Taoist." The thunderbolt immortal spat out lightning from his mouth and swallowed the bamboo joint. A clear stream gushed out from the top of the thunderbolt immortal's head like a fountain. It then turned around and fell down. As the clear stream flickered, an indescribable fluctuation merged with the thunderbolt immortal's body. "I's going to meditate." The thunderbolt immortal's face lit up as he said, "In these 50 years, I have put in a lot of effort. It's time for I to rest." The thunderbolt immortal sat down cross-legged in the space and started refining the bamboo joint with all his might. Fellow Taoist has worked hard." Xueqi cupped his fist and said, "Leave the rest to I." Xueqi thought of something and asked, "How is His Highness Lan doing these days?" The thunderbolt immortal naturally didn't answer Xueqi's question. He passed the information he knew to Xueqi and ignored him. Xueqi's face turned gloomy when he received the thunderbolt immortal's information. If he didn't know His Highness Lan's thoughts, he might have thought that His Highness Lan was selfish and wanted to expand his strength. However, if he knew His Highness Lan's thoughts, then His Highness Lan's actions were really thought-provoking. All right. Xueqi instantly thought of the scene when he had seen the Grand Mist Ancestor in the illusion when he had left the Star Moon Palace. A sharp glint flashed across his eyes and he said coldly, "People often say that a mountain cannot hold two tigers. This Xiao believed it before, but now I'm afraid it's true. Since it's like this, Grand Mist Ancestor, bring it on. This Xiao doesn't mind playing with you. Who doesn't know how to cast a long line to catch a big fish?" Now that he had a plan, Xueqi unleashed his powerful Mahayana stage aura, and the entire sky began to churn. Several huge tornadoes gathered in the sky like holes, stirring up the originally clear sky. Bursts of thunderous rumble spread out in all directions as Xueqi flew toward the soaring Dragon Mountain range and the Yu province faster than the wind. There was no need to wait for the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Boom, boom, boom. Several hundred thunderous booms resounded from the soaring Dragon Mountain range. Countless lightning bolts shot up into the sky, shaking the earth. 2 giant lightning bolts, several 100,000 Fortune Gate's Iron Army, and millions of Fortune Gate's low-level disciples emerged from the soaring Dragon Mountain range to welcome them. They spread out over 1,000 li in the sky. Xueqi usually didn't like etiquette, but seeing his own disciples' imposing manner, he was also happy in his heart. How could he blame him? His figure blurred, and he teleported in front of everyone. Before he could say anything, Fu Jiwen and the other disciples led them to kneel on the ground and shouted, "Disciples respectfully welcome Taoist back to the sect." "Good, you've all worked hard." Xueqi's eyes flashed like lightning as he looked around. Even though all the disciples were kneeling, they could clearly feel Xueqi's gaze on them. They couldn't help but feel excited, and they couldn't help but reply, "Disciples didn't work hard. Wait here, and follow this old man back to the Fortune Dao Palace. This old man will reward you according to your contributions." Xueqi smiled as he raised his hand. He didn't use any divine ability. None of the disciples dared to disobey. They stood up and replied in unison, "Disciples obey, thank you Taoist." As Xueqi flew up, Fu Jiwen and the other disciples of the Fortune Gate, as well as the disciples of the soaring Dragon Mountain range led by Li Xiang and Fu Jiwen, returned to the Fortune Dao Palace in an orderly manner. They arranged themselves neatly around the Fortune Dao Palace and formed a capital star formation to protect Xueqi. Xueqi sat on the jade chair on the high platform and raised his hand to pat the top of his head. Rumble. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts poured out from the top of his head, shooting into the sky. The roof of the Fortune Dao Palace and the capital star formation of the soaring Dragon Mountain range couldn't stop it. These lightning bolts condensed into a huge storm in the sky. Not only did it shine brightly, but it also pierced through the clouds. The sound of thunder that could vanquish all evil even enveloped the sky for tens of thousands of li. The lightning storm spewed out from the top of Xiaohua's head, and after it flowed in the sky, it slowly entered Xiaohua's body. It flowed endlessly, and Xiaohua's voice resounded in the lightning storm. Xian Songzi, Daoist Jingting, Wang Baifei, Yu Zhongquan, and Chong Yuan, listen up. Disciple is here. The 5 of them didn't dare to delay, and they hurriedly stepped out and bowed respectfully. Each of you will lead 50,000 Fortune Gate disciples and split into 4 directions. Head to the 3 continents to welcome the Fortune Gate disciples coming out from the Star Moon Palace. There are 8,111 Golden Core Realm disciples and 3,607 Foundation Establishment Realm disciples participating in the Star Moon Palace's training. Not a single one of them can be missing. Whoever dares to harm my Fortune Gate disciples will be killed. Yes, disciple understands. Xian Songzi and the others immediately stood up and led the 200,000 disciples out of the soaring Dragon Mountain range, heading to the 3 continents' 4 directions. It wasn't just Xian Songzi and the others. Even the other disciples, who had flown far away, turned their heads to look at the clouds. Thunderous roars could be heard, and thousands of strange phenomena appeared amidst the wind and thunder. An unparalleled sense of pride rose from the bottom of their hearts. The human race's Mahayana realm, the supreme cultivator of the 3 continents, should have such an imposing manner. 200,000 disciples accepted the order and left. The soaring Dragon Mountain range became somewhat empty. Xiaohua looked all around for a moment and his gaze fell on Li Xiang and His Highness Lan. Li Xiang didn't expect Xiaohua to return with such a valiant aura. He was so excited that his face became somewhat red. Li Xiang, Prince Lan. Xiaohua smiled and said, "The 2 of you have worked hard. Tell me about the situation in the past 200 years, and let Fu Jiwen and the others learn from you." Disciple doesn't dare to claim credit. Li Xiang and Prince Lan were startled, and hurriedly stepped out from the ranks. This is what disciples should do. What the soaring Dragon Mountain range was like in the past, and what it is like now, this old man knows better than the 2 of you. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Tell me how the Fortune Gate has developed in the past few years." "Yes, master." Hearing this, His Highness Lan agreed and began to tell Xueqi everything that happened after Xiaohua left. Although His Highness Lan's story was no different from Xueqi's, for some reason, perhaps because of Xiaohua's suspicion, Xiaohua always felt that His Highness Lan wanted to take all the credit for himself. Without waiting for Prince Lan to finish, Xiaohua sighed in his heart. First impressions are the strongest. Really amazing, ah. After Prince Lan finished speaking, Li Xiang added a few more words. Finally, Li Xiang took out a jade eye from his bosom and respectfully handed it over to Xueqi. This disciple knows that master will be back soon. This is the list that this disciple and junior brother Lan recently made. Inside it are the rewards for the inner sect disciples that the 2 of us have discussed. Originally, we should wait for junior brother Xueqi to return before the 3 of us take a look. Since master has returned first, please take a look and decide how to reward us. Prince Lan blanked for a second, then smiled and said, "This is something that disciple casually mentioned a few years ago." Disciple didn't expect senior brother Li to make such a detailed list. Disciple has slacked a little. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. There is no need to be arrogant or inferior. Being able to work together to handle the Fortune Gate's affairs so well is not easy. Xiaohua took the jade eye pendant and casually glanced at it. He then passed it to Prince Lan and said, "I'll leave this matter to you. Reward each disciple according to what is written in the jade eye pendant. Don't disappoint them." When Highness Lan saw this, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Rewarding the disciples was a great opportunity to attract people's hearts. He was originally a little jealous of Xiaohua for snatching this opportunity, but he didn't expect that Xiaohua would actually give this opportunity to him. However, he still declined. "Master, this is senior brother Li's draft, you see. Where would he have the time to do this, ah?" Xiaohua laughed. "You have received master's teachings, but he hasn't. Master will guide him in his cultivation during this period." "Thank you, master." Li Xiang was overjoyed hearing this, and Prince Lan was also happy. Xiaohua asked a few more questions about the Fortune Gate, the hidden immortal mainland, and even the Luoyang Merchant Union before he sent Prince Lan and the other Fortune Gate disciples out, leaving Li Xiang, Fu Jiwen, and the others in the Fortune Dao Palace. Master. Fu Jiwen pondered for a moment, then said, Disciple has a private matter to discuss with Master. Is it urgent? Xiao Hua was surprised and asked casually. This matter is very important. It can't be considered urgent. Fu Jiwen answered honestly, but didn't say what it was. And then wait for a while. Xiao Hua nodded, and Fu Jiwen withdrew. Subsequently, Xiao Hua ordered Li Xiang to sit down cross-legged. Then he stretched out a finger and pressed it between Li Xiang's eyebrows. A trace of crystal light entered, and a moment later, Xiao Hua said with satisfaction, Li Xiang, although your cultivation hasn't improved much in the past 200 years, your foundation is very solid, which suits your temperament. Now, Master will teach you some secret techniques and give you some pills. You should be able to enter the unity stage soon. Disciple's aptitude is not good, but to be able to receive Master's teachings and enter the unity stage in my lifetime, Disciple has long surpassed Disciple's expectations. Disciple thanks Master for the gift. Li Xiang didn't regret that he could only enter the unity stage. Instead, he was grateful from the bottom of his heart. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4586. Seeing that Li Xiang's requirements were not high, not much different from when he was at Black Wind Ridge, Xiao Hua sighed. Li Xiang, every cultivator's path is different, and their achievements are also different. You and Xueqi are Master's disciples. Your foundation is indeed a little weak. But don't worry, Master will do his best to arrange some opportunities for you in the future. I hope you will go further and exceed Master's expectations. Moreover, your talent in this life. Xiao Hua originally wanted to reveal some information about reincarnation, but he stopped when he was about to speak. After all, reincarnation was one of the world's mysteries. Xiao Hua didn't have much confidence at this time, so he didn't dare to say this, and cause Li Xiang to be negligent. Li Xiang didn't understand the meaning in Xiao Hua's words, and didn't notice that Xiao Hua didn't mention the real meaning of Prince Lan. He thought that Prince Lan's achievements would be much higher than his, so Li Xiang smiled and said, Master, don't worry, Disciple knows his own weight. Disciple will do his best to take care of the Fortune Gates affairs for Master. Good. Xiao Hua gave Li Xiang a cultivation technique and medicinal pills, then took out the Kunlun mirror and said, During this time, you can cultivate in the Kunlun paradise. Thank you, Master. Li Xiang was overjoyed, but he didn't forget to say, Also, Master, if possible, please consider other foundation establishment and golden core disciples. Let them cultivate in the Kunlun paradise. The Kunlun paradise is different from the three mainlands. Disciples below the nascent soul realm are not suitable to cultivate in there. Xiao Hua smiled and said, However, those disciples in the Qi refining realm can be considered. Don't worry, after you cultivate in seclusion, draw up a plan, Master will consider it. Speaking of this, Xiao Hua hesitated again and asked, Also, is the Hidden Immortal Mainland's Jade Pavilion Conference going to be held soon? Li Xiang was dazed for a moment, then nodded and said, Yes, Master, it will be held in a month's time. Why? Does Master want Disciple to go to the Jade Pavilion Conference? No. Xiao Hua smiled and said, You don't need to think too much about this matter. Master will ask Fu Jiwen to send a disciple to snatch an Imperial Preceptor's lot. It's not a big matter. Think about the development of our Fortune Gates out of disciples, after all. It's a little troublesome. Yes, Master. Li Xiang understood Xiao Hua's meaning. After that, Xiao Hua shook the Kunlun mirror and took Li Xiang into the Shenhua continent. He then looked at Fu Jiwen and frowned. Disciple, didn't Sun Jian promise to persuade Immortal Emperor Go Chen? Why is the Immortal Palace sending troops to annihilate my Fortune Gate? He returned to the Immortal Palace before all of you. If you hadn't come back in time, my Fortune Gate's foundation would be in trouble. Fu Jiwen looked around and said with a smile, Master, this is all in the past. Although General Sun has never explained anything, it is still a matter of the past. But seeing that Martial Uncle Once-You has become an immortal master of the Immortal Palace, we should know that General Sun is also a man of his word. There must be something wrong with this. What? Once-You had become an immortal master of the Immortal Palace? When did this happen? Xiao Hua was somewhat stunned. Fu Jiwen was also stunned. He smiled apologetically and said, Could it be that Martial Uncle Lei Ting didn't tell Master? He didn't, Xiao Hua said with a smile. He was in a hurry to cultivate. After he escaped into the Kunlun immortal realm, he didn't say anything. My disciple, tell me about the things that have happened all these years. Yes, Master. Fu Jiwen didn't dare to be negligent. He told Xiao Hua about the matters of the 3 continents. In the end, he said, there is news coming from the continuous merchant union every day. These news are all stored in the Wind Pavilion. Master can go take a look if you have nothing to do. And Master understands. Xiao Hua rubbed his chin thoughtfully. The Confucian cultivators have an immortal master, the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas is weak, and the Paradise River is rising. This has a deep impact on the 3 continents. Oh, what about the Buddhist sect? The Sutra Seeking Supreme Bliss? Reporting to Master, the Sutra Seeking Supreme Bliss is quite far from the soaring Dragon Mountain range. There isn't much news about the continuous merchant union. However, the Sutra Seeking Supreme Bliss seems to have reached the hidden immortal mainland. I just don't know when it will end. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, if Master wants to know, disciple will send someone to ask. No need to be deliberate. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I'm afraid Master doesn't have much time left. Master will only think about you all. Master. Fu Jiwen was surprised. Then he was overjoyed and shouted, congratulations, Master, for reaching the peak of the Grand Ascension stage. Previously, I was still a little worried, but now I can finally be at ease. Disciple, what do you mean? Xiao Hua recalled what Fu Jiwen had said earlier, and a bad feeling arose in his heart. He asked curiously, Master's cultivation. Could it be that it has something to do with the important matter you mentioned? Yes, Master. Fu Jiwen thought for a while and said, Immortal Emperor Go Chen's 9th princess, Princess Xin, lost half of the Immortal Palace's Heaven's Heart and couldn't take out the Heaven's Heart during the Heaven Selection Conference. In a fit of rage, Immortal Emperor Go Chen imprisoned her in the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal and banished her to the lower realm. It's been nearly 300 years since then. What? Xin was imprisoned in the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal? Who did you hear that from? When Xiao Hua heard this, his complexion unconsciously changed. He stood up from the jade chair in shock. The originally calm thunderstorm suddenly erupted like a gigantic thunder sword that directly slashed into the blue dome of heaven. Tens of thousands of li to the left of the thunderstorm, the silent thunderstorm crazily expanded, swallowing countless clouds and shattering them into pieces. Fu Jiwen only felt as if the entire world was collapsing. Countless stars dimmed, countless clouds rose and fell. His entire soul and body were like a falling leaf, rapidly spinning without landing. Master, it's Bai, and who said it? Fu Jiwen couldn't breathe. He struggled with all his might, barely spitting out a few words from his mouth. Immediately after, Xiao Hua made an N sound. As if the heavens and earth were splitting apart, the space around Fu Jiwen had light and darkness, the energy of heaven and earth, and the freedom of rebirth. Fu Jiwen looked at his master in shock. It had only been 50 years since they last met, and he was even more unable to understand his master's realm. The feeling of being a drop in the ocean involuntarily slowly emerged along with the sweat on his back. Xiao Hua's figure was like a mountain, standing there steadily. His mood was like the thunderstorm in the sky, crazily swaying, unruly sweeping across the horizon. Towards Princess Xin, there was no need to mention the hardships of experiencing life and death together in the profound water palace. There was no need to mention the dreamlike sweetness in the illusory array. There was no need to mention the sorrowful bitterness when the 3 cups of fate ended. Just the tacit understanding between the thumb and the hand that held her hand, and the kiss between life and death in the profound water palace were enough for Xiao Hua to plant the seed of love in his heart for Xin. Xiao Hua had the cultivation of a Buddhist sect, but he wasn't a Buddha. Xiao Hua was a cultivator, but he wasn't an immortal. Even immortals had the love of Su Ji and Xing Yue. So how could Xiao Hua not find new feelings after leaving fairy Hongxia for hundreds of thousands of years? Not to mention the hazy feelings between Xiao Hua and Princess Xin. It had already become a seed that was growing strong. Xiao Hua knew that Princess Xin's heavenly heart was so important that she was willing to be imprisoned in the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal for him. Xiao Hua couldn't help but be moved. There was a kind of love called concealment. There was also a kind of love called sacrifice. There was also a kind of love called completion. Xiaohua also wanted to tell Xian that there was a kind of love called commitment. Xiaohua steadied his mind, and his gaze swept across Fu Jiwen's body like stars. He sat down again and asked in a low voice, "When did Baiyan send the message?" "Master, it's like this." Fu Jiwen took a deep breath and told Xiaohua about 10 years ago when Baiyan was banished from the Immortal Palace and was stranded near the soaring Dragon Mountain range. He was discovered by a Fortune Gate disciple and brought into the Fortune Dao Palace. In the end, Fu Jiwen hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "In addition," Baiyan also said. Seeing Fu Jiwen's hesitation, Xiaohua couldn't help but frown. His heart trembled even more, and he asked, "What's wrong? Is there any more bad news?" Fu Jiwen shook his head and replied, "It's not particularly bad news, but the Nangong family seems to have the intention of looting a burning house. They want to take advantage of this opportunity to propose marriage to the Immortal Palace. Their intentions are punishable by death." Xiaohua's eyes narrowed, and a chill appeared on his face. Even someone as strong as Fu Jiwen felt as if snow was falling under the moon. However, until now, the Continuous Merchant Union has not received any news about the marriage between the Nangong family and the Immortal Palace. Fu Jiwen hurriedly said, "Continuous Merchant Union?" Xiaohua sneered and looked outside the Fortune Dao Palace. He said in a rather lonely voice, "After arriving at the Star Moon Palace, Master found out that the Continuous Merchant Union is just a child. It's too difficult for them to get any news from the Immortal Palace." "Indeed." Fu Jiwen nodded. After Disciple received the news, Disciple discussed with Bai, and hurriedly sent the news of the new princess being banished to the lower realm and the Nangong family to the Continuous Merchant Union. The Continuous Merchant Union also spent a lot of money to search, but Disciple has not found any valuable information. Origin stones are not omnipotent. There are some things that cannot be exchanged with origin stones. Xiaohua said indifferently. The secrets of the Immortal Palace and the 4 great families have been hidden on the hidden Immortal Continent for who knows how many years. It is not something that our Fortune Gate can compare to. Speaking of this, Xiaohua pondered for a moment and said to Fu Jiwen, "Summon Baiyan and tell Master the results of your discussions over the years." "Yes, Master." Fu Jiwen flew out of the Fortune Dao Palace. As for Xiaohua, he was sitting on a jade chair, his fingers trembling in the air. He seemed to be forming hand seals, but also seemed to be writing some green seal text. His eyebrows furrowed even tighter. After a short while, Baiyan followed Fu Jiwen to the Fortune Dao Palace. When Xiaohua returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range and released the thunderstorm from the top of the Fortune Dao Palace, Baiyan had already sensed it. She was shocked. After meeting Xiaohua, she had already told Fu Jiwen to cultivate with Xiaohua. Moreover, after being banished to the soaring Dragon Mountain range, she had been secretly delighted to see Fu Jiwen's cultivation. She knew that her prediction was right, but when she saw Xiaohua's Grand Ascension stage aura again, she still found it hard to calm down. She really did not dare to imagine that in just a few hundred years, Xiaohua could actually stand side by side with Emperor Go Chen and become the supreme cultivator of the human race on the 3 continents. Moreover, she was also shocked by the East Sea Empress scheme. Chapter 45-87. When Baiyan entered the Fortune Dao Palace, she glanced around and saw that Xiaohua was the only one sitting in the main hall. Although the Xiaohua in front of her didn't look any different from the previous Xiaohua, Baiyan didn't dare to neglect him. She hurriedly retracted her gaze and followed behind Fu Jiwen. Lowering her head, she flew to the bottom of the stage and kowtowed. "Servant Baiyan greets Dao Master." Xiaohua was stunned and smiled bitterly. He glanced at Fu Jiwen and hurriedly helped Baiyan up. A smile appeared on his face as he said, "Baiyan, no need to be so polite. As the saying goes, master and disciple are like father and son. Fu Jiwen is my disciple and my child. You are his dual cultivation partner and my Fortune Gate's daughter-in-law. You can call him Dao Master in front of others and call him Master in private." "Yes, Master." Baiyan was overjoyed and hurriedly corrected herself. Xiaohua looked at Baiyan and reprimanded Fu Jiwen. "Disciple, you're hiding something. You haven't taught Baiyan the 5 energies unification technique that Martial Uncle once taught you." Without martial uncle's approval, disciple wouldn't dare. Fu Jiwen's eyes lit up and he hurriedly bowed. You can teach it yourself. Master will tell you where your martial uncle is. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand again, taking out some pills and flying them to Fu Jiwen. These are also for you and Baiyan. Thank you, Master. Fu Jiwen and Baiyan replied at the same time. After the two of them stood up, Xiao Hua thought for a moment before taking out a bottle of pills and handing it over to Baiyan. He said, Baiyan, you were once again banished to the lower realms because of Xian. Master truly feels guilty in his heart. This is a pill used by the female cultivators of the Dao sect. It was personally refined by Master. Wan knew that this was Xiao Hua loving the house and its crow. Because of his guilt towards Xian, he once again looked at her in a new light. Her heart warmed. How could she still accept it? Unknowingly, she fell to her knees again and kowtowed as she cried out. Master, this disciple is Fu Jiwen's wife, and also your daughter-in-law. Right now, our family still lacks a princess. This disciple pleads for Master to save the princess. This disciple has experienced the heaven's punishment of the heaven's punishment crystal. I truly know how powerful this heaven's punishment is. This disciple is not sure if Her Highness can survive the most unbearable loneliness in this world. Master, please make a move soon. Xiao Hua's face was slightly red as he raised his hand to help Swan and I up again. He said in shame, Swan and I, get up. It's fine if I didn't know about it before, but now that I know, how can I just stand by and do nothing? Master owes Xian too much. I will not let Xian down in the future. Thank you, Master. Momo's previous words were actually somewhat threatening Xiao Hua, but seeing that Xiao Hua didn't care, her heart relaxed, and she was also happy for the new princess. Xiao Hua pointed at the jade bottle, and the pill fell into Baiyan's hand. Baiyan didn't say anything else, and carefully put it away. Baiyan, tell me the origin of this matter, as well as the result of your discussion with Jiwen. Xiao Hua asked again. Yes, Master. Baiyan didn't dare to neglect and report it again. But this time, what Baiyan said was different from what Fu Jiwen said. Baiyan said more about the new princess's longing for Xiao Hua in the Immortal Palace, as well as the many other princesses' schemes against the new princess. She even spoke about the Heaven's Choice Assembly in detail. And when she talked about the 3 cups of fate, Baiyan's face was full of tears. Master, actually before I left, this disciple felt that there was something wrong with the princess. It was as if she was going to say goodbye to Master forever. At that time, this disciple even advised Her Highness that although the other half of the Heaven's Heart was lost, with the full power of the Immortal Palace, although the 3 continents were big, it was not impossible to find it again. After finding it, it wouldn't be too late to meet Master again. There was no need to meet Master before the punishment. But Her Highness just smiled and didn't answer, only facing the bronze mirror. This disciple had never seen Her Highness without makeup so solemn. A woman will make herself beautiful for her lover. Master at that time, this disciple knew that Her Highness truly loved Master. Perhaps she was afraid that Master would take some extreme actions after knowing that she was being punished by the heavens, so she wanted to comfort Master in advance. Moreover, when she returned to the Immortal Palace from the hidden Immortal Continent, Her Highness couldn't hide her smile. She was simply not afraid of the heavens. At that time, this disciple was scared to death. I was really afraid that Her Highness would have other thoughts, so I tried my best to persuade Her Highness. Afterwards, Her Highness went to the 3 provinces of Thunder and Lightning to receive the heavens' punishment. The entire Immortal Palace was on alert. It was said that the heavens' punishment was personally controlled by Immortal Emperor Go Chen. Even the Eastern Sea Empress didn't know which prison Her Highness was imprisoned in, let alone where the prison was in the 3 continents. Listening to Baiyan, Xiao Hua's mind was also filled with thoughts. Obviously, Princess Xian didn't tell anyone about the whereabouts of the half-heaven's heart. Even at this time, Baiyan didn't know that the Immortal Palace had already gathered the 5 Qi unification method. Of course, Wen Chu was also one of the Fortune Gate secrets. Without Xiao Hua's approval, Fu Jiwen didn't dare to casually tell Baiyan about Wen Chu. Xiao Hua was just a little confused. Since Sun Jian had already returned to the Immortal Palace and Wen Chu had offered the 5 Qi unification method to the Immortal Palace, Immortal Emperor Go Chen probably already knew that Xian's half-heaven's heart had fallen into Xiao Hua's hands. In particular, with the 5-chi unification method, that half-heaven's heart had already lost its effect. Immortal Emperor Go Chen imprisoning Xin no longer had any meaning. Xiao Hua didn't know why Immortal Emperor Go Chen didn't pardon Xin. Bian was very obedient and didn't say much about the Nangong family's marriage proposal. He only said one sentence before continuing. When this disciple woke up from the coma and saw that I was in a strange place, I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. However, after this disciple checked my cultivation, I discovered that my cultivation wasn't crippled like the other Immortal Palace disciples who were banished to the lower realm. This disciple was overjoyed and thought that Empress Dowager was being lenient. However, when this disciple met a Fortune Gate disciple and found out that this was the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range, this disciple suddenly realized. This was clearly Empress Dowager wanting this disciple to deliver a letter to Master. Therefore, this disciple hurriedly went to the mountain gate to look for young Master Fu, but the hateful thing was. Fu Jiwen coughed and said, Bian, pick the main point. It's fine. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Bian, just say it. Actually, it's nothing much. Bian smiled and said, the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate disciple was different from what this disciple had imagined. The disciple guarding the array was actually a little arrogant and insisted that this disciple take out their Palace Master Lan's handwritten order before they were willing to let this disciple pass. Oh, even a 4th grade Essence Force Master like you is so arrogant. Xiao Hua wasn't surprised and asked with a smile. That's right. Bian answered. At that time, the Fortune Gate disciples had just killed several dozen when sages and were full of arrogance. This disciple, a 4th grade Essence Force Master, was not in their eyes at all. And then, Xiao Hua nodded, acknowledging Bian's complaint and asked again. This disciple has plenty of ways to deal with this kind of disciple. Bian answered, I gave them some benefits and said some threats. I also reported the names of Lu Yi, Wang Bianfei, and the others that young Master Fu had mentioned to this disciple earlier. Coincidentally, Wang Bianfei was inside the mountain gate, and after reporting, this disciple naturally entered the Fortune Gate. What did you discuss with Jiwen? Xiao Hua closed his eyes, and his expression was indifferent as he asked. Bian glanced at Fu Jiwen and signaled him with his eyes, indicating that this was the time for Fu Jiwen to perform. Fu Jiwen helplessly shook his head and said, Master, this disciple and Bian have discussed and felt that there are 2 difficulties in rescuing Her Highness. The first difficulty is to find the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal, and the second difficulty is to find a place with innate restrictions and destroy the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal. The second one is considered the easiest, and the first one is the most difficult. Because even the East Sea Empress doesn't know where the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal is, I'm afraid that in the entire Immortal Palace, only the 3 lightning provinces have records of this. Therefore, if Master wants to rescue Her Royal Highness, he must first enter the 3 provinces of Leitang. Bian said that the 3 provinces of Leitang are in charge of punishment and are heavily guarded. It is impossible for ordinary people to get close. However, Her Royal Highness is very familiar with the 3 provinces of Leitang. Old Man Sun Yu is an important minister in the 3 provinces of Leitang. If Master can meet Sun Yu, he may be able to get some information. But if Master wants to enter the 3 lightning provinces, you must first enter the Immortal Palace. But, where is the Immortal Palace? Bian doesn't know, and Gusu Chodi probably doesn't know either. Ordinary scholarly families also don't know. If you want to find the way to the Immortal Palace, you can either go through the 4 families, Sun Jian, or the Star-Picking Tower. Of course, I didn't think that Martial Ant Wenxiu would enter the Wenxiu Palace of Literature. If Martial Ant Wenxiu can cooperate from the inside, it shouldn't be too difficult for Master to enter the Immortal Palace. After passing the most difficult stage, Master just needs to find out where Her Highness Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal is in the 3 lightning provinces. And here, General Sun Yu should be able to help. Hearing this, Xiao Hua shook his head and said, Since the East Sea Empress can't find out, how can Sun Jian find out? Master, you don't know. Bian smiled and said, The East Sea Empress doesn't know how to find out, but she can't. The Empress is the mother of the world, and she has to be a role model for all the women in the world. She also has to treat the 9 princesses fairly, so she can't find out. And General Sun. At this point, Bian suddenly realized something and said curiously, Master, the Sun Jian that Master is talking about. Can't be perfected Lord Qingyuan of the Sun Palace? He's still alive. Xiao Hua didn't hide it from Baiyan, didn't I say just now? He has already returned to the Immortal Palace. Oh, I understand. Baiyan stuck out her tongue and immediately thought of Sun Cho, who had gone to the Hall of Fragrance. She knew why the East Sea Empress had asked her to send a letter to Xiao Hua. It must be because Sun Jian had revealed Xiao Hua's strength. Then, Baiyan said confidently, before I was demoted, perfected Lord Qingyuan was in the Hall of Fragrance. But he was called Sun Cho at that time, and he was also in charge of the Sun Palace. I think the East Sea Empress called him to the Hall of Fragrance to find out where Her Highness is. On the other hand, the Empress sent me to the lower realm to send a letter to Master. This way, we can work together from the inside. Donate, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4588. N. Xiao Hua nodded and smiled. Since that's the case, I believe Sun Jian's side is also investigating. We should also make preparations. Master will rest for a period of time before going to investigate the location of the Immortal Palace and contact your martial uncle once you... Yes, Master. Fu Jiwen agreed and said, then Disciple. We'll also try to contact the 4 great families and see if I can get some information. And Nangong Jingyin, she actually dares to snatch the princess from Master. We must teach them a lesson. Tao Wu also shouted angrily. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said rather leniently, when Master heard those words just now, I also felt uncomfortable in my heart. However, the Nangong family doesn't know of Master's relationship with the new princess. They wanted to use the new princess' freedom as the price to threaten the Empress. However, the indirect effect was also to let the new princess obtain her freedom. However, their plans were all for naught in the end. That won't do. Tao Wu raised her head and said stubbornly, how can a toad like Nangong Jingyin covet the princess? Although Master is magnanimous and has telepathy with the princess, Disciple feels uncomfortable just thinking about it. Furthermore, the Nangong family will definitely publicize this matter. Even if the princess marries Master in the future, Master's face won't look good. And Tao Wu is right. Xiao Hua nodded. Jiwen, send Disciple to contact Nangong Ping of the Nangong family. Tell him that Master has something to say to Nangong Tianjiao. Yes, Disciple understands. Fu Jiwen agreed without thinking. Xiao Hua then explained, Nangong Ping is the leader of the Nangong family who entered the Star Moon Palace. Master has saved their lives before. Yes, Disciple understands. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, Master has made a trip to the Star Moon Palace. I wonder how many people he has saved. Oh Master, Disciple heard that Zhai Xingzi and Gusu Chodi also entered the Star Moon Palace. Did they have any fortuitous encounters? Tao Wu and Gusu Chodi had a good relationship and naturally thought of the two of them. Her tone was filled with envy. Xiao Hua smiled and said, there are many fortuitous encounters in the world. The Star Moon Palace is just one of them. This time, the Star Moon Palace is different from before. Who knows how many humans and demons have died in there? What is there for you to be envious of? When he spoke up to this point, Xiao Hua looked into the distance and frowned slightly. However, I've already promised Zhai Xingzi and Gusu Chodi in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm that your martial uncle Wen Chu would go to the Gusu clan on Zhai Xingzi's behalf to propose marriage for Gusu Chodi. Now that he's become the Immortal Palace's Master of Literature Palace, it's quite troublesome. I have to hurry and find your martial uncle Wen Chu. Master. Upon hearing this, Tao Wu hurriedly said, Hey. Fu Jiwen frowned and stopped him. Xiao Hua was puzzled and asked, what's wrong? It's nothing. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, I'm going to wait for Master to come back and get married. After all, if I don't go through the ceremony, I won't be able to be with Momo and have to give her family an explanation. Boom. Hearing these words, Xiao Hua's mind suddenly gave birth to a clap of thunder, and the thunderstorm in the sky once again shook violently. That's right. Xiao Hua lost his voice and said in a low voice, even Momo and Gusu Chodi want a status. Xian is Immortal Emperor Go Chen's 9th princess. How can I save her without knowing the truth? Those who know won't say much, but what about those who don't know? What will they think? What will they say? Didn't Fu Jiwen tell me 2 stories that day? If I don't save Xin openly, if I don't openly propose marriage to the Immortal Palace, how can I stop everyone's tongues from wagging? How can I give the Nangong family a fair counterattack? Even if Xin doesn't care about these things, the Immortal Palace cares about these things, this Zhao's descendants care about these things, and in the future, the Fortune Gate's hundreds of millions of disciples will care about these things. Xiao Hua seemed to be pondering, but also seemed to be muttering to himself. He didn't avoid Fu Jiwen and Fu Jiwen. When Fu Jiwen and Tao Wu heard this, shock appeared on their faces. At the same time, Tao Wu was so excited that his face turned red. He grabbed Fu Jiwen's hand and stared fixedly at Xiao Hua. That's right. Xiao Hua had already made his decision. He looked up at Fu Jiwen and said, now that the Immortal Palace has obtained the 5 energies origin method, that half of the heavens will has no meaning. Princess Xion's punishment should also have a conclusion. However, this conclusion needs an excuse, and also an explanation for Immortal Emperor Go Chen to the world and the other 8 princesses. The Nangong family just happened to give the Eastern Sea Empress this excuse. I'm sure they've already started to prepare and send a letter to the Immortal Palace. Xin gave me half of the heaven's will to save me that day. After I used it, I had no way of returning it to Xin. This caused Xin to be imprisoned in the heaven's punishment prison crystal. Since Xin is like this, I can't let her down. I must openly save her. Xin has such deep feelings for me, so I can't let her down. I must announce to the world that I am Xion's true love. I'm prepared to propose marriage to Immortal Emperor Go Chen. Ah? After listening to the end, Fu Jiwen was a bit dumbfounded. This was because he understood Xiao Hua the most and knew that Xiao Hua didn't like to attract attention. Therefore, all his previous thoughts were based on this. It would be best if they didn't reveal anything and quietly rescued the new princess. However, he didn't expect that Xiao Hua would propose marriage to Immortal Emperor Go Chen in order to save Princess Xin. Master. Baiban was abnormally excited and shouted, your idea is the best. Disciple feels that Her Highness likes it the most. If she knew, she would be so happy to marry Master. However, Disciple still has a small doubt. Speak. Xiao Hua asked. Baiban replied, Master, don't forget. The Nangong family proposed marriage first. Moreover, the Eastern Sea Empress has already agreed to the Nangong family. With her temper, she definitely won't go back on her words. If she doesn't say anything, the Immortal Emperor will definitely agree to the Nangong family's marriage. Now that Master proposes marriage, how can these 2 agree? After all, it's first come first serve. Hee, that's easy. Xiao Hua smiled. Master won't propose marriage first. I'll ask about Princess Xion's whereabouts first and save her before the Nangong family. Then, I'll return to the Immortal Palace to propose marriage. It's best if we can cook the rice. Fu Jiwen took the opportunity to shout. Bah! Baiban spat but still nodded. This method is the most realistic. No! Xiao Hua smiled. Others can, but not Xion. The 9th princess of the Immortal Emperor must have etiquette above all. Master, you can actually hide on the side and suddenly make a move when the Nangong family saves Xion. Fu Jiwen reminded again. No. Xiao Hua shook his head. When it comes to saving Xion, you must take the initiative in everything. You can't give anyone a handle. If you want to do it, you have to be the hero who saves the beauty and the lovers finally get married. You have to do it perfectly. That's not right, Master Yu. How can you interrogate Immortal Emperor Go Chen? Fu Jiwen asked curiously. Even if you find the Immortal Palace, how can he meet you? Master is the supreme cultivator of the human race, equal to the Immortal Emperor. How can he not meet you? Baiban curled his lips and said a few words to Fu Jiwen. Then, he reminded Xiao Hua, however, Master, Immortal Emperor Go Chen is the most cunning. I'm afraid you won't be able to out-talk him. You have to think of a plan to interrogate him. Haha, I'm the worst at talking. Xiao Hua stretched out his hands, looked at them flashing with lightning and laughed. I'm the best at persuading people with virtue. Master. Fu Jiwen exclaimed. Could it be that you want to fight at the Lingyun Palace? Xiaohua rolled his eyes at Fu Jiwen and said, Disciple, I'm going to ask for Xian's whereabouts and then ask for her hand in marriage. If I fight at the Lingyun Palace and trample on immortal Emperor Go Chen's face, do you think immortal Emperor Go Chen's temper will be good enough to not care about this? And still betroth Xian to me? That's true. Fu Jiwen rubbed his nose and said awkwardly, not to mention immortal Emperor Go Chen who leads the Confucians, even a rich man with some farmland won't agree. So, Xiaohua smiled and said, with my face as a human Grand Ascension stage master, I'm sure immortal Emperor Go Chen will tell me if I ask for Xian's whereabouts. Then, I'll rescue Princess Xian and bring her to the immortal palace to beg for mercy. Then, I'll catch him off guard. What's done can't be undone. Master, Baiban said in disbelief. You're thinking too simply. The immortal emperor represents the heavenly prestige. As the saying goes, the heavenly prestige is unpredictable. Maybe he really won't reveal it. Don't forget, even the imperial empress doesn't know where the princess is imprisoned. Xiaohua sneered and looked up at the sky. Then there's nothing to say. Xian has treated me so well, I can't let her down. Then, I'll destroy the Lingyun Palace. Good. Baiban jumped up in joy and shouted, Attack the Lingyun Palace. We must attack the Lingyun Palace and let the 8 princesses know that the 9th princess's husband is someone who can pierce through the heavens. Let's see who dares to hit us when we're down. Master, you have to think twice. Fu Jiwen looked at the old man and the young man with a wry smile. Neither of them was afraid of making a big deal out of this. Unfortunately, Baiban ignored Fu Jiwen and said anxiously then, Master, if that's the case, I have to contact Marshal Antwen Chu and hurry to find the Immortal Palace. If we're too late, the Nangong family will take the lead and that will be bad. Attacking the Lingyun Palace is just a preparation. I don't think it'll happen. Of course, if it really does happen, then it'll be the time for our fortune gate to establish our prestige. This is also an opportunity that Immortal Emperor Go Chan has given me. Xiaohua smiled coldly. So, there's no need to involve Marshal Antwen Chu. I have my own plans. How does Master want to find the Immortal Palace? Baiban was a little confused. Give it as a reward, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 45-89. Master has already asked Li Xiang about it. Xiaohua smiled. The Hidden Immortal Mainland's Jadestage Conference is about to be held in a month. Isn't that a great opportunity? Master, what does the Jadestage Conference have to do with the Immortal Palace? Baiban was even more confused and asked curiously. Disciple knows about the Jadestage Conference. That year, Gusu Chodi was still a star monarch. That place is where the guilty officials of the Immortal Palace are punished. Even the Star Monarch Hall's Hall Master wouldn't know about the Immortal Palace's location. Fu Jiwen seemed to have thought of something and asked with a smile. Master, why did you send your disciples to snatch an imperial preceptor's lot? Could it be that Master wants to establish a country? Baiban was unhappy that Fu Jiwen changed the topic, but just as she was about to speak, Xiaohua answered. Disciple, do you know about the Shao country? Of course I know. Fu Jiwen smiled. Disciple had just returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range and heard the disciples talking about the Shao country. Is Master planning to establish a country in the Shao country? Yes, Xiaohua smiled bitterly. It's not that Master is ambitious, but Master has no choice but to establish a country. Xiaohua then recounted what he had seen and heard in the Shao country, as well as how Xueqi and the others had captured the country's ruler. In the end, he said, instead of letting those Confucian cultivators or Grand Mist ancestor subordinates take advantage of the Shao country, it's better for our fortune gate to do it ourselves. Moreover, didn't Master say it earlier? Xueqi and Li Xiang are fortune gate's outer disciples, and you are fortune gate's inner disciples. Not to mention you, even your subordinates are stronger than Xueqi and the others. How do you expect outer disciples to interact with inner disciples? I can imagine how awkward it must be for Li Xiang and Prince Lan to sit on these 2 chairs in front of me when I'm not around. But if I ask you to sit on this chair, you definitely won't be willing. Therefore, Master has decided to send the outer disciples to the Shao country. And Master's plan is good. Fu Jiwen nodded. One is the Shao country, the hidden immortal mainland's first Dao empire, and the other is the soaring Dragon Mountain range, the hidden immortal mainland's first Dao sect. They can support each other and develop together.
Master. Byron couldn't help but ask, Master, how do you plan to find the immortal palace?
Listen carefully, you'll know soon. Xiaohua smiled, then asked Fu Jiwen, how many imperial preceptors will there be in the Yaotai meeting this time? I'm not sure about that. Fu Jiwen shook his head and said, after I returned to the mountain, I read the information of the Luo Yi Business Alliance. It seems that the last time, there were 1,200. This time, there will be fewer, but there should be about 800.
Why are there so many?
Xiaohua asked curiously. Back then, Master had snatched 1 out of 10, and racked his brains. The calamity in the hidden immortal continent has affected the kingdom of Taoism. Almost every day, the kingdom of Taoism is destroyed. Moreover, the interval between the Jadestige gathering has been long. Naturally, there will be more lots for the State Master. Fu Jiwen said with a smile, however, Master, isn't it better to have more lots for the State Master? Master still can't find the way to the immortal palace with these 800 lots?
Hearing this, Byron finally understood.
Xiaohua's idea was really incredible, but it was very feasible. Since the kingdom of Taoism had to be worshipped when the kingdom of Taoism was established, the lot of the State Master had to return to the Sole Official Hall. The Sole Official Hall was in the Immortal Palace, so following the lot of the State Master would naturally lead to the Immortal Palace. Of course, 1 lot of the State Master might not be enough, but what about 10? What about 100? What about 1,000? With Xiaohua's strength as a human Mahayana stage cultivator, he could definitely find the way to the Immortal Palace. In this way, Xiaohua could step into the Immortal Palace's Nantian Gate without relying on any information or contacting Wen Chu.
Master.
Disciple. Really admires you.
Byron said, only Master
can become a human Mahayana stage cultivator. Unlike some people who know, but don't say it. After saying that, Byron pinched Fu Jiwen's waist. Fu Jiwen didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly responded with an ouch, to show that he had received Bai An's anger. Xiaohua looked at the young couple, and after a while he said, Bai An used to be an immortal official of the Immortal Palace, so he has considered some things more comprehensively. Jiwen and Bai An, think about this more carefully. We will set off for the Yaotai Mountain in 10 days.
Yes, Master.
Fu Jiwen and Bai An bowed and agreed. Also, Jiwen, you take Bai An and your disciples back to the Shenhua continent. Let Bai An take over Xiongyi's matter and investigate the culprit behind the Shao country's Confucian cultivators. You will organize the 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples and accompany Master to the Yaotai Mountain.
Yes.
Fu Jiwen agreed and left Bai An in the Fortune Dao Palace while he went to gather his disciples. Bai An, tell Master about Princess Xian. Xiaohua smiled and said, she never mentions anything about the Immortal Palace.
This.
Feng Xiu was a little embarrassed and said, Master, let's talk about this after you rescue Her Highness. After all, this disciple doesn't know what Her Highness wants to say. If this disciple says something wrong, Her Highness will punish this disciple.
All right.
Xiaohua also knew that it was difficult for Yan Cheng. After pondering for a moment he asked, all right, back then when Master met Princess Xian, she was only around the 4th grade of essence energy. It seems like her strength back then was not comparable to yours.
Why is that?
At the mention of this, anger immediately appeared on Bai An's face. He said fiercely, isn't it all because of Princess Qing of the Jasper Flower Palace? Bai An then told him about Princess Qing's plot to frame Princess Xian. In the end, he said, Princess Qing is injured and her cultivation is not fully recovered.
I heard from the maidservants of the School of the Emperor Star that they once begged the princess to report this matter to the Emperor Immortal. However, the princess felt that the Emperor Immortal was too busy with government affairs and was troubled by the matters of the 4 great clans.
If she told the Emperor Immortal would be even angrier, so she didn't say anything. At that time, the princess probably wanted to avoid Princess Qing, so she descended to the lower realm. Hearing this, Xiaohua was stunned. He seemed to have thought of something. He looked deeply at Bai An and said, Bai An, didn't Xian tell you why she went to the Saint River in the Western Paradise?
No.
Baiban asked curiously. Why did Her Highness tell this disciple this? Xiao Hua said word by word. When Master met Princess Xueqi in the Western Paradise, she had invited a Buddhist disciple who was proficient in heaven's feet. She also wanted to invite a Taoist cultivator who was proficient in water escape and formations to the Xueqi Palace at the bottom of the Saint River to save a nephew of hers. She also said that this nephew of hers was suppressed in the Xueqi Palace. How is that possible? Baiban didn't care and said casually, Her Highness's nephew. However, at this point, Baiban suddenly froze. The details of her time with Princess Xueqi suddenly appeared in her mind. Baiban immediately understood. Wasn't the nephew that Princess Xueqi was talking about her? Baiban had never thought that a descendant of an immortal emperor would risk her life to save her in an unknown place when she was seriously injured. Just for that possibility alone. Princess Xueqi. Baiban knelt on the ground and cried as she kowtowed to the sky. Even if this servant's body is smashed to pieces, this servant will still save you from the heaven's punishment prison crystal. Otherwise, this servant won't be able to repay your love for me. Sigh. After Baiban finished crying and kowtowing, Xiao Hua helped Baiban up and said, Xueqi is always so considerate of others. She treats you the same way as Master. After hearing so much, she didn't tell you or Master about it. This is the bearing of an immortal emperor's princess. Whether it's you or Master, we can't let her down. Of course, the heavenly Tao is fair as well. If she didn't save you, I'm afraid you wouldn't have been banished to the lower realm to save her.
Master, I don't want to eliminate any karma.
Momo stopped crying, looked up at the sky, and said, I just hope that Master can go to the Immortal Palace and force out the princess's whereabouts. Teach the arrogant Immortal Palace a lesson, as well as those immortal officials who hurt the princess. After a while, Fu Jiwen returned with his disciple. He looked at Baiban's increasingly determined expression in bewilderment and did not ask any questions. Meanwhile, Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror and sent them all into the Shenhua continent. Then, he closed his eyes and meditated. The Yaotai Mountain was still the Yaotai Mountain. For thousands of years, that blue stone peak was like a jade tablet worshipping an immortal palace. It stood between the heavens and the earth, regardless of whether the wind blew or the rain fell, regardless of whether the wind was biting cold. Not to mention that Xiao Hua had left for more than 300 years, it was like a blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, nothing had changed on Yaotai Mountain. The mountain was still the same mountain, and the water was still the same water. Even under the Yaotai Mountain, there were still some tents in a radius of nearly 100 miles. Around these tents, there were still many soldiers and generals in bright armor. Those monarchs who were recruiting Tao cultivators were also waiting respectfully for them. However, the current Yaotai Mountain was different from before. Snowflakes were fluttering in the sky, and these snowflakes were different from most places in the hidden immortal continent. The snowflakes were the size of a palm, and looked like white cranes. As the snowflakes fluttered in the air, they danced along the protrusions on both sides. It was very beautiful. However, when the snowflakes fell to the ground, it could be seen clearly. Rather than saying that these snowflakes looked like white cranes, they looked more like two palms of yaoju flowers. The yaoju flower was a kind of flower that ordinary Confucian cultivators in the hidden immortal continent liked. The yaoju flower was pure white in color, and had a kind of faint fragrance without makeup. It symbolized the noble and virtuous conduct of Confucian cultivators. Moreover, the petals of the yaoju flower were not round. Instead, they were folded together, just like how Confucian cultivators put their hands together when they saluted. When the wind blew, the yaoju flower swayed as if it was saluting someone. This was the real reason why Yaotai Mountain was famous in the secular world. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.